My next life as a villainess, all routes lead to doom. Volume 6. Chapter 1, Graduating from the Academy of Magic. Prince Jetord, President of the Student Council, stood on the podium as representative of all the students graduating that year. Just as last year, the blonde prince with blue eyes was met with blushing and sighing by the female students. This time, his speech was even accompanied by some crying. This was the Academy's graduation ceremony, and I, Katarina Clays, was one of the graduating students. I had only spent 2 years here, but I had made a lot of memories in that short span. While looking at my fiancée smiling from the podium, I thought of all that had happened during my stay at the Academy, and of all my efforts before entering it. The entrance ceremony had made me so nervous. When I was 8 years old, I hit my head and regained the memories of my previous life. There I used to have an average family and unapologetically otaku hobbies until I was killed, still young, by an unfortunate accident. Next thing I knew, I had become Katarina Clays, a duke's daughter. I was pleased to find that my silky brown hair and, slightly menacingly slanted, blue eyes made me prettier than the average. Roundish face I had in my previous life until I realized that it belonged to the evil antagonist of Fortune Lover, the Otome game I had been playing the day before my death. In the game, Katarina was engaged to Prince Jetord, and she did everything she could to hinder the romance between him and the protagonist. If the player managed to get to the good end, the villainess would be exiled out of the country, and, should they fail and get the bad end, she would be killed. Doomed either way. In order to avoid said doom, I started taking all possible countermeasures back when I was 8, and, a few years later, I anxiously entered the academy. I then met Maria, the aforementioned protagonist, and became friends with her, enjoying 2 very eventful years that led unexpectedly to the game's most uneventful ending, the friendship ending. All the measures I had taken to fight doom proved useless. The toy snakes I had made with Grandpa Tom to throw at Jetord, the training with the sword, the farming to survive as a commoner, all useless. Not that I'm complaining that everything went well. And the school festival that was so much fun. Lots of stores had brought food stands offering all different types of snacks. Well, I also got kidnapped, but it was still fun. What was not fun was the disappearance of my adopted brother, Keith. At first I was scared that he had left home because he was fed up with me, but that proved wrong, and in the end we managed to get him back to safety. And that's not even half of the stuff that happened to me. Any other student's stay would look boring in comparison. However, after today's ceremony and the party in the Academy's garden, my stay would be over too. Since the 2 Prince twins were graduating this year, there would also be another party at the castle later on, so many events to attend. The party at the Academy would probably be similar to last year's, but what about the one at the castle? Would they have the usual luxurious buffet? I was already looking forward to it. I knew I should probably restrain myself at the buffet here so that I could enjoy the one later to the fullest. But I had to at least try out the delicious food available here. I should choose what I eat carefully. Of course they're going to bring out some fine meat, so steak and roast beef are no-brainers. But I can't pass on the fish, either, so I have to count in the carpaccio, and, for desserts, at the very least cake and jelly and. Ister big sister. Ah. Keith? What's the matter? My brother was looking at me with an appalled expression. You were thinking out loud. Oh my, I spoke all that stuff about my memories at the academy. You only spoke about food. I was pretty sure that I was recollecting memories till halfway through. I wonder what happened there. Just wait a bit longer, the ceremony is almost over, he said, handing me a piece of candy. He must have thought that I was hungry. I wasn't, but I did the polite thing and ate the candy anyway. Why did he even have candy on him to begin with? He always gave me something to eat whenever I felt hungry. Maybe he had all sorts of food on him. His flaxen hair and blue eyes made him look wild and handsome, but carrying food around was something I associated with the old men from my previous life. That made me a bit sad. I was thinking about that while eating the candy that Keith had given me when I looked back at the podium. Jedward had stepped down, his place taken by a first-year student who was congratulating the ones graduating. It really looked like the ceremony was almost over. My academy life, that felt so short, yet so long, had come to an end. I had felt this very melancholy a few times before in another life. But hey, this candy really is good. I should ask Keith if he has any more on him. The ceremony had ended. In this world, there was no line of graduates receiving their diplomas by the school head one by one, no long speeches by guests, and no student choir. Just the congratulations of a few people, and that was it. The party right after that, however, was incredible. In my previous life, the most popular students were also surrounded by fans as they graduated, but it had nothing on this. It was particularly bad for the student council members, so much so that Jedward was completely lost among the crowd of admirers. Maybe because I also was in the student council, I got people swarming around me too. I've always been your fan, or I've looked up to you all this time, or I'll never forget you, they'd say, handing me flowers. I wasn't sure whether they had confused me with someone else or if they just meant those compliments for the council as a whole. Unlike me, Maria, Mary, and Sophia were surrounded by boys as well as girls. Why? That made me a bit envious, but I still appreciated all the girls blushing around me, and I accepted their flowers with a smile. I was just starting to get tired of smiling when the crowd dissipated a bit, and two younger girls stepped up to me. Lady Katarina, you had quite the following today, said Frey Landower, who was to become the new student council president. Her beautiful face, framed by black hair and highlighted by her blue eyes, always showed a smile. She was a talented and charming girl. Not as much as the other members, though, said Ginger Tucker, the soon-to-be vice president. Unlike Frey, she had brown hair and eyes, and was not particularly beautiful, but she was incredibly smart. She was a serious, even cold girl, but she was a good person deep inside. A bit of a tsundere, one might say. Why do you have to say that? I am so sorry, Lady Katarina, said Frey, bowing her head. What Ginger had said was true and, at least to me, not really offensive, but it was always like this for these two. Ginger didn't really choose her words carefully, and Frey would always step in to apologize before the situation escalated. They'd been close friends ever since they joined the academy. And I also wanted to give you this. You already got a lot, but, said Frey, handing me a flower bouquet as gorgeous as one would expect such a talented girl to choose. Thank you, I said, accepting it. Then Ginger started looking into a bag and took something out of it, handing it to me. She had gotten me something different from the usual flowers. I thought you might like this more than flowers, so. It was a beautifully wrapped assortment of my favorite sweets. Thank you so much. I love it. She was right, sweets are better than flowers. They taste good and fill you up. Ginger joined me in smiling, and Frey started grinning. She was so intent on finding something that would make you happy, and she searched a lot of confectionery shops. Stop. She doesn't need to hear that, interrupted Ginger, angry and blushing, as cute as ever. I got sad at the idea that this would be the last time I got to see the antics of these two, but then I remembered that they would probably be at the castle party. Since all student council members had been invited. Are you two going to attend the party at the castle? I asked them. Yes, I will attend, but Ginger will not, replied Frey. What? Why not? I am sorry that I cannot, but I have no dress and accessories befitting such a luxurious party, explained Ginger matter-of-factly. Indeed, some time ago I had heard that she was the daughter of a countryside baron who was not that much richer than a commoner. That would explain why she couldn't afford a dress fancy enough to be worn at the castle. As a duke's daughter I had never had any problem of the sort, but being invited to a party wasn't the only requirement to attend it. Frey looked angrily at Ginger. I offered to lend her one of my dresses, but she won't accept it. I could never wear one of your dresses, she replied. A look at Frey's figure was enough to prove that point. She was blessed with the body of a model, and a dress made for her probably wouldn't fit anyone else. Then we can have it fixed. Our sizes are so different that fixing it would not be enough. We would need to have it remade from scratch, she said. But then I got an idea. Then I'll just give you one of my dresses. What? Lady Katarina's dress, said Ginger with her eyes suddenly shining. Sure. Our sizes shouldn't be that different, I said, proud of my idea. Unless her clothes were skillfully hiding her real proportions, she looked like she could fit my dresses without even needing to fix them. But that's I could not. She mumbled. Frey intervened by saying, you should take her offer. When are you going to get another chance to wear the dress of the person you look up to so much? What are you talking about, said Ginger, blushing. Well, after the party, come to Clay's Manors so that we can get you dressed up, I told her, to which she blushed even further before nodding with a quiet yes. Now all the council members would be at the party, and the more the merrier. I was already looking forward to seeing everyone when I heard a voice from behind. Katarina. Did I hear something about you lending a dress? It was my friend Mary. She had been surrounded by a crowd even larger than the one around me. How had she made her way here? And for some reason this popular and beautiful girl, with her reddish-brown hair and eyes, was now breathing heavily, her face contorted with excitement. Yes, Ginger said that she had no dress for the castle party, so I told her that I would lend her one. I said, overpowered by Mary's enthusiasm. I want one too. Please lend me a dress, she interrupted me. You already have a dress, don't you? I said, puzzled. She was the daughter of a marquis and was engaged to a prince. There was no way that she had trouble affording a dress, unlike Ginger. And I was sure I'd heard her talking about the new dress she had bought specifically for the party at the castle. That has nothing to do with this. I'm not sure I understand. Oh no, my friend is going mad. Please. Lend me one as well. It's not fair that only Ginger should have one. Yes, she's definitely losing it. What happened to her during the ceremony? But our sizes are different, and you wouldn't. That's not fair. If Mary gets one, I want one too, interjected Sophia out of nowhere. Her red eyes were sparkling and her white, shiny hair was ruffled. Just like Mary, she looked a bit too enthusiastic to be her usual, elegant self. They must all be too excited because of the ceremony. And then, possibly because Sophia and Mary were talking so loudly, the other students who had given me flowers and were still within hearing range had joined the choir of "Give me one too." Unable to understand what was going on, I found myself in the middle of a chaotic battle between female students. My friends then came to my rescue, and the battlefield went calm as we all went back home to prepare for that night's party at the castle. I managed to convince Mary and the others to give up borrowing a dress, so only Ginger came home with me. I wished I could have helped her choose the dress, but since I myself was busy preparing, I had to ask the maids to do it. Actually, it wasn't so much that I was busy, the really busy ones were the servants, who would brush my hair, do my makeup, and even dress me up. They were kind but also strict. "Young miss, you have eaten too much. Your stomach is bulging. I will tie up the dress tighter, so please hold your breath. Please don't make it any tighter. Young miss, please stay still as I pull your hair straight. Please don't pull it like that." I just stood there, defenseless, while they did as they pleased. Ignoring my requests, being a duke's daughter didn't count for much when my mother had specifically ordered all the servants to be strict with me. After they succeeded in turning this villainess into a proper lady, I made for the carriage which would bring me all the way to the castle. Ginger and Keith, who had already finished preparing, were waiting there. As I had expected, my dress perfectly fit Ginger, who the servants had prettied up as they had done with me. "I'm so glad that it fit you. It looks wonderful on you," I said, making her blush. "You have all of my gratitude. This is nothing short of an honor. I do not care about the others' envy anymore," she said, running a hand along the dress. "You're welcome." "Wait, what do you mean by envy?" I asked her. But Keith interrupted, saying, "Hurry up and get on the carriage, we don't have that much time," and we swiftly did as he said. "You seem to have a lot of luggage with you. Are you going to change clothes during the party?" asked Ginger after the carriage had started moving, noticing that I had more baggage than one would need to just attend a party. Some high-ranking nobles did change dresses in the middle of a party, but I was planning to do no such thing. All that I cared about was the buffet. I had no time to waste on clothing. "No, I just brought my pajamas, other things I'll need for the night, and fresh clothes for tomorrow." "Night? Are you going to stay the night at the castle?" "Yes, as a celebration of sorts for graduating," I replied, and Ginger's face, for some reason, turned bright red. "I see. So, you and Jedward are finally going to..." She was mumbling so quietly that I couldn't catch what she said. "What?" I asked, but Keith, with inexplicable enthusiasm, barged in the conversation. "That's not the case. The whole student council is going to stay the night." "Oh, really? I thought," said Ginger, embarrassed, lowering her face. "The only thing that will happen tonight is a tea party with Big Sister, Mary, and others." "Yes. The other girls and I are going to have so much fun. I'm already looking forward to it." Before graduating, we had made plans to stay the night in the castle's guest rooms after today's party because, after leaving the academy, we wouldn't have as many chances to see each other. A pajama party with all the girls, that's bound to be fun. That sounds so fun. Doesn't it? I bought a new pajama set for the occasion, and I also brought snacks and tea," I said, prompting Keith to complain. "There does seem to be too much luggage. Make sure not to eat too much, Big Sister." "Don't worry. And at night, always stay close to Mary and the others. Make sure not to walk around alone." I get it. I wouldn't want to get lost in the castle." "It's not about losing yourself. You really don't get it, do you?" "I am sorry to interrupt you, but we are almost there," said Ginger as the castle's gates showed themselves through the carriage window. Just make sure not to walk around alone, repeated Keith just before we joined the party at the castle. Jedward, who had probably been informed that we were arriving, was standing at the entrance, waiting for us, and greeted me saying, "Welcome, my princess." If anyone but him had delivered a line that cheesy, I would have probably cringed in reply. He offered me his hand and I placed mine onto it like a proper lady, making him smile. A few months ago I found out that Jedward was in love with me, and, at first, just his squeezing my hand like this was enough to make my heart race. I'd now gotten used to it, if only slightly. It didn't leave me completely unfazed, but at least I managed to look calm as I returned his smile. I knew I could do it. Jedward went on to escort me to the party as usual, but since he was the host tonight, he would probably have lots of guests to greet. His trademark smile was there, but his face looked tired. "Jedward, are you okay?" "Excuse me." "It's just that you look a bit tired," I said. After looking surprised for a second, his expression turned into a genuine, real smile. "You're incredible, you read me like a book," he said, pulling me closer towards him. "I am happy to see you are concerned about me," he continued, whispering into my ear, "but I am fine. As long as my beloved is with me, I will never get tired." Ah! He had taken me by surprise, and I froze still, blushing. Romantic whispering directly into my ear was a bit too much. I was still opening and closing my mouth like a fish out of water when Jedward was called for by some guest that wanted to greet him. "I will invite you to dance later, so wait for me and do not dance with anyone else," he said with his usual smile as he left. Being a prince must be tough. Jedward was so busy that he could only meet me for a moment at the entrance. As we were engaged, his first dance would probably be with me, but after that he would have to dance with lady after lady. As soon as Jedward left us, Mary, who was, like me, engaged to one of the hosts, came to greet us. Her fiancé Alan, just like his brother Jedward, was busy greeting guests, leaving her without an escort. That being said, her speed in approaching me was still impressive. "Katarina, you look even more wonderful than usual," she said with a smile, looking gorgeous in the dress that she had prepared for the occasion. "Did you prepare for our tea party later tonight?" she asked with a twinkle in her eye. "Of course. I bought new pajamas and brought my favorite sweets and teas. I too bought new pajamas just for today. I brought a few of my favorite romance novels." "Sophia." The voice that had surprised me came from my friend, who had just come into the party donning a very cute dress. "Good evening, Katarina, Mary," she said with an elegant bow. Her brother and escort for the night, Nicole, looked as handsome as ever standing by her side. So handsome that his hair and eyes, despite being black, seemed to be sparkling. "I have been looking forward to today's sleepover for so long now," she added as a hint of red appeared on her white porcelain skin. "You're a guest at the castle, so make sure to behave like a lady," Nicole told her. "You're also staying the night, right, Nicole?" I asked him. I was sure I'd heard something about that a few days ago. "Yes, making Sophia stay here without me would make me worry too much," he said in a very older brotherly fashion. "You really care about Sophia, don't you? By the way, Keith will also stay the night." My mother had also been worried about letting me stay the night alone, so my brother was to accompany me. I was supposed to be the older sibling, though. "Then that makes all of us. Tonight, the whole student council will be staying the night at the castle," said Sophia, beaming. If we had Nicole and Keith, that would indeed be all of us, since Jedward and Alan lived in the castle to begin with. "We girls are going to enjoy each other's company," but are you boys going to stay in separate rooms? Considering that they were all staying in the same castle, that sounded a bit lonely. Why don't you also have a party together? I said, convinced I had just made a wonderful proposal. A party made exclusively of handsome boys? What could be better than that? What are you talking about, big sister? There is no way we would do that, came in a reply from behind me. It had been spoken by Keith, whose expression was displeased. After finding that we were all chatting together, he had somehow escaped all the ladies that were trying to get his attention so that he could join us. Why not, Keith? You could stay up and chat amongst yourselves till morning. Wouldn't that be wonderful? There would be nothing wonderful about that. The last thing we'd want to do is chat with each other. Don't you agree, Nicole? Chatting amongst ourselves, mumbled Nicole, who actually sounded excited at the idea. Keith looked extremely surprised by this reaction, and Sophia blushed once again, saying boys talking into the night would open up the door to a new world of romance. Nicole's excitement probably came from a place more pure than that of his sister. He likely just wanted to talk about guy stuff. Lately, Sophia had said that she had started reading some new subgenres of romance novels, but I decided not to think too much about that. Just as things started to get confusing, Frey and Ginger, with an exhausted Maria between them, joined us. We went to save Maria from the boys, said Ginger, explaining that because she had no escort, a lot of boys had jumped at the opportunity, to her dismay. As expected of fortune lovers protagonist Maria, the top-tier beauty with blonde hair and clear blue eyes. Being beautiful looked like more trouble than it was worth. That hardly surprises me. We should have found you an escort. Sorry, Maria, said Nicole after Ginger's explanation, but Maria shook her head. I had heard that I would not need anyone to escort me to attend today's party, so I refused all the kind offers to do so that I received. I should have accepted. It turned out that a lot of boys had asked Maria to let them escort her tonight, but she didn't know any of them well enough to accept. Was Maria always this popular? She also received a lot of dresses as presents, but, for the same reason, she asked the magical ministry to give her one to wear at the party. There were several which fit perfectly, but that just made it worse. I understood how she felt. Getting a perfectly fitting dress from someone who you don't know very well was a bit scary. How would they even know your size? But that means that the very people who sent her those dresses are here right now. She could be in danger. By the way, while coming here I heard that Ginger had her dress lent her by Lady Katarina. I am so envious. Me too. I would have loved to borrow one from her myself. Lady Mary, you already have a dress. There was no need for you to borrow one from my sister. Right now, there may be some ill-intentioned boy trying to get closer to Maria. I have to keep my eyes peeled. That has nothing to do with it, Master Keith. I wanted to wear Lady Katarina's dress. You have made that obvious enough. My sister is not even listening to us anymore, though. Did that boy look towards us? He's suspicious, that one, too. I have to protect Maria. She's so busy sending menacing glances around the hall that she has completely forgotten that we are here. Big sister, oh, thank you for the explanation, Ginger. That guy's suspicious as well. We're surrounded by enemies. My dress was dirty. It wasn't anything as flashy as somebody throwing wine on me like I'd seen in the soap operas of my previous world. I had been so busy protecting Maria from boys and keeping potential threats away that I had spilled some food from the buffet on myself. To me it was but an honorable wound received while protecting my friend, but Keith sighed when he saw it. I couldn't leave it like that, so I decided to go into another room and have a servant expertly clean my dress. Someone else would have to protect Maria in the meantime. Keith, make sure to protect Maria with your life, I said. Big sister, make sure to behave, and come back as soon as you're done, he replied. I was the older sister here, but he treated me like a child. After going into the other room, the servant used water and a sort of cleaning powder to make my dress look like new, and she even dried it with something that looked like a hairdryer. There was no trace of meat sauce left. Impressive. I complimented the servant, a plump lady, on her cleaning abilities, but she smiled and modestly said that it was nothing. She then started accompanying me back to the party. But while we were still in the hallway, she was called for by another young lady who had dirtied her dress. I reassured her that I knew the way to the hall and could go there myself. After all, I just had to go straight through the hallway. I couldn't have gotten lost if I tried. On my way back, I heard a woof behind me. It was Pokey, the dark familiar that usually stayed inside my shadow. Pokey! Go back in the shadow. You can't come out now. Usually he was a good boy, but today he was probably excited because of the unfamiliar location. He wagged his tail and ran off down another hallway. As a creature of darkness he didn't eat and wouldn't dirty up the place, but I still couldn't let a dog run free in the castle. I worriedly ran after him. When I finally managed to reach Pokey, I was in a dark corridor I had never seen before. I had no idea how to get back to the party hall, so I just moved in the direction of the only light I could see. Woof, said Pokey, currently in my arms. I followed his eyes and found a woman standing in the hallway. Wah! I screamed in surprise. A woman standing silently in a dark corridor. Is this a horror movie? This is too scary, I thought, frozen with fear. Guests are not allowed to go any further, she said with a young, thankfully unghost-like voice. I got lost. Could you tell me the way back to the party hall? I see. Go back that way, and then. She politely gave me directions. I thanked her and started making my way back to the party, feeling slightly bad for having been terrified of someone so nice. Now that I think of it, why was she standing there all alone? I thought, and looked back at her. Except she wasn't there anymore. I felt a chill run down my spine and ran back to the hall. It was time for dancing, and Jedward had been looking for me. I was worried. I could not find you anywhere. I'm sorry, I left the hall for a bit. He did get slightly angry, but we left it at that. That was a relief, because I was too scared to talk about the disappearing woman in the dark corridor. Having Jedward next to me, however, took the fear away. I know that you just came back, but would you care to dance? He asked, giving me his hand. It was customary at parties like this to have your first dance with your fiancé, so I accepted and started dancing to the music, collecting envious stares from the ladies around us. With a dancer as good as Jedward taking the lead, even someone like me could manage to look somewhat elegant. A handsome prince, perfect in everything he did. It was no surprise that all the girls blushed looking at him. In my previous life I had been one of those girls, staring at Jedward through the screen, but I'd never expected that he'd really fall in love with me, the game's Villainess. I still had trouble believing it. I wasn't anywhere near fit for someone like him. After all, I'm Katarina. Is something the matter? Are you tired? Asked Jedward, interrupting my train of thought. He was so good at leading that I didn't even have to think about dancing. Oh, no, I was just thinking about stuff, I said, and he frowned slightly. Thinking of other things while you are dancing with me, that makes me sad. I wish you would think of me, he whispered so sweetly that I felt weak in the knees. Please, Jedward. This is going to kill me one day. Would you like to continue with the next song? He asked after the song was over, but Keith, who was waiting nearby, informed him with a smile that there was another lady waiting for him. The lady in question, who was now staring at Jedward with starry eyes, was an important guest, so the prince had no choice but to appease her. He gave Keith a scary smile, then told me that he'd be back soon, and approached that lady. The next song started, and I accepted Keith's offer to dance. Big sister, why did it take you so long to get your dress cleaned? I was worried you wouldn't come back, he told me while elegantly leading our dance. Unlike Jedward, he knew that I was away for a long time, so I had to explain to him that I was trying to go back to the hall by myself when Poka led me astray. Poka ran away? He usually always listens to you, why would he do that? He asked with a questioning expression. Wasn't he just excited about being at a big party? That's just you, big sister. Keith replied. Rude, but not wrong. I'm impressed that you found your way back through this huge castle, though, he continued. Should I tell him about the woman in the dark hallway? I thought to myself, but the whole thing was so creepy that I just said, I just have a good survival instinct. That's really like you, I guess, he said, convinced. I expected him to say something like, don't you mean womanly intuition, but he just agreed with me. By the way, didn't Jedward tell you anything? He asked me, changing the subject. What do you mean? Like to come to his room tonight, or anything like that? Why would he say that? We're planning to have a tea party between us girls tonight. You wanted to do a boys' party, as well. So Keith wanted to have a tea party with the other boys. I don't, that's not it, it's just that Jedward could go after you tonight. Jedward go after me? He's still planning to kill me. I thought we were over that. Fortune Lover's plot was over, so I thought that I wouldn't have to be scared of the bad ends anymore. Was I wrong? That would mean that when Jedward told me that he liked me, he was lying. Nobody said he's after your life. And what do you mean still? He's never been out to kill you. I really don't get you. Keith got mad at me, but what did he know of the perils of living as a villainess? I gave him an offended stare, and he sighed in response. He's after you to do, you know, things that couples do, he went on, with his voice becoming smaller and his face redder. Things that couples do, I reflected upon those words. In my past life I had never known romance, but even then I understood that Keith wasn't talking about dancing. Is he talking about that? The things that mother and father do after their kids are asleep? I could feel my face burning with embarrassment. You don't mean? He's approaching you that overtly, so it wouldn't be surprising if he thought of doing such things tonight, he replied as I panicked. His approach really was overt, but no way. That would make Fortune Lover an R18 game. But it was a game for all ages, and in my previous life I had died before I could turn 18, so I had never played R18 games. Of course I was curious about that kind of thing. But I knew nothing about it, just a kiss was enough to shock me, so anything more than that would be. Keith, what should I do? I asked, worried, sick and on the verge of tears. For some reason, he froze in place and blushed. Well, just don't go walking around alone, and if he tells you to go to his room for sweets or anything, refuse. Stay with Mary, Sophia, and Maria at all times. Got it? Yes. I'll do as he says. I'm not ready for any R18 developments yet. We were standing still as we spoke, and the song was close to ending. Once it did, we were surrounded by an army of ladies intent on reaching the handsome, still unengaged heir to a duke, Keith, pushing me away in the meantime. They screamed dance with me, and no, me, like carnivore animals before their prey. I could still see him among his fans, but, lacking the courage to fight all of them to get back to him, I elected to root for him from afar. As I was trying to go back to the buffet, I noticed that a lot of girls were blushing and sighing while all staring at the same place. I followed their gazes, and just as I thought, a certain someone was there, walking towards me. "Would you like to dance with me?" he asked, producing a smile that made even more girls sigh and that made my heart skip a beat as well. However, thanks to the immunity I had developed over the years, I managed to keep my cool and say it would be my pleasure, like a proper lady, taking Nickel's hand. A lot of people stared while I danced with Jedward or Keith, but in Nickel's case they weren't only girls, but boys as well, and they looked truly captivated. In particular, there was one man whose eyes were burning holes into Nickel's face. "Hasn't he noticed? Is he in danger, just like Maria?" "Nicole, there's a man, over there, who's been staring at you very intensely this whole time," I said, just to be sure. "Oh, him? He is always like that, but he is not dangerous. He just sometimes takes my used tableware and things like that." "Hey! How is that not dangerous?" "That's totally creepy. He's a stalker." "He poses no threat," said Nicole, noticing my shock. This shocked me even more. What in the world do threatening people do then? I couldn't bring myself to ask him that, so I changed the subject to break the awkward silence. "I heard from Sophia that you had been secretly looking for a fiancé," I said. I knew I was the one who had brought up the staring man in the first place, but the whole stalker thing was just too scary. Thankfully, Nicole seemed to understand that and didn't go back to that topic. I tried to keep it a secret from her so that I would be spared her comments, but she found out anyway. Her comments? I could see why he wouldn't want that, but we were talking about Sophia. She loved her brother so much that she'd never let him find a fiancé without her approval. She would probably even accompany him to the matchmaking dates. And when she did find out, she was furious that I had hidden it from her, and she is still upset. I can't blame her. I would be upset too if my brother kept something so important a secret from me, I said, imagining how I'd feel if Keith started looking for a fiancé without telling me. "You have a point," he replied. Nicole was smart, but sometimes he seemed to miss obvious things. "Anyway, how did the matchmaking go?" I asked him excitedly. Nicole, despite not being engaged yet, was extremely popular. It would take him no time to find a fiancé, and a wonderful one at that. "Not well," he replied. "What? Even someone as charming and beloved as him could have trouble finding a partner?" "Handsome, eerily so, heir to an earl, talented, kind, smart, if sometimes slow, gentlemanly. He didn't have any big flaw that I could think of. So I thought that the ladies would be fighting for him. Why hadn't things gone well? Maybe finding a fiancé is harder than I thought. Do they have to fight to the death to decide engagements? We do no such thing, and it is not even that hard to begin with," said Nicole. "Wait, did I say that out loud?" "Yes. I was sure. I'd only thought that I must be more careful." "Anyway, why didn't it go well for him, then?" "Because I was not yet ready to find a partner," he replied to my thought again. Did I say that out loud again? No, but it showed on your face. Am I that easy to read? I worried, making Nicole smile. I will have to decide what to do eventually, but not right now, he whispered. I wasn't sure what he meant, but more importantly, his usual charming aura hit me even stronger than usual, and before I knew it, I was eating salad at the buffet. Hey? I was dancing with Nicole, then there was some man staring at him, and then what happened? How did I come here? Why am I eating salad? Nicole's handsomeness was scary indeed. I had to be careful, or I'd become just like that man who collects Nicole's tableware. Feeling tired, I went from the salad corner to the meat one. I need some protein. Oh, this looks nice. And this? This must be good. As expected of a party at the castle, there was delicious meat as far as the eye could see. I couldn't eat all the dishes, so I planned to choose the tastiest looking ones and limit myself to those. But they all looked tasty, so I ended up putting a bit of everything on my plate. What's with all that meat? Are you going to eat all of that? I heard someone say. Alan. What are you doing here? As today's host, he was supposed to be busy greeting guests. What was he doing near the buffet? I just got tired and snuck here to rest for a while, he said. He really did look tired. Being a prince must be tough. Eat this, then. I said, offering him my plate. I thought that some food might give him some energy. I definitely don't need all that, he refused. Your mood will get worse if you don't eat something. I insisted. That only applies to babies and to yourself, he said, quite rudely. Fine. I'll eat it myself, then. And I'll do it in front of him, and if he asks for some, I won't give him any. That'll teach him. I started eating, and wow, it's really tasty. Delicious. This steak is so juicy, this one just melts in your mouth. Knowing that I could eat as much as I wanted of all this delicious food made me so happy. Munch munch munch. Munch 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 munch. MPFH ga ha ha ha. I heard Alan laugh next to me all of a sudden. What happened? Alan? What's wrong? You should see yourself eating. It's as if you've never had food before. Ha 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 ha. He was amused by how wholeheartedly I was enjoying the meal, but I didn't know what was so funny about that. He kept laughing and laughing, and I couldn't really go back to eating. If only he'd eaten it himself, he'd know how good this meat was. He'd be eating it like that too. That gave me an idea. I stabbed a piece of meat with a fork and shoved it inside Alan's mouth, which was still open and laughing. HMGFF. WGFH. At first he stared at me without moving, but I reached close to his face and told him, I'm sure you'll like it, Alan, at which point he finally started chewing it silently. Maybe it was because of all his laughing, but his face looked a bit red. Isn't it delicious? I asked once he was done. Yeah. He replied coldly. But after knowing him for all these years, I could tell from his face that he was actually really pleased. What did I tell you? This meat's delicious. You'd go crazy for it yourself. This one's tasty, too. I put a piece of a different dish on the fork, because I wanted Alan to see how good the buffet's offerings were. Lady Katarina. Please do that to me too, said a panting Mary, who had come running from somewhere and was now out of breath. Mary. Are you okay? I asked, worried about her. Why yes. I was just a bit hungry. Of course. You've been dancing for so long. Don't worry, I'll go get you something to eat. What? No. Please, Lady Katarina, let me eat from that fork, too. That's not fair, Mary, said Sophia, who had appeared from nowhere. I want that too. Sophia, where's Nicole? I asked her. He was Sophia's escort, but he was nowhere to be seen. Oh, a man about the same age as my father invited him to the terrace, she said with a smile. That's no smiling matter. This could be dangerous. That man could be the one who was staring at him. And even if it were someone else, it could still be dangerous. Sophia, noticing that I was shaking, comforted me with her beautiful smile. He probably just wants to discuss some business matters with my brother. Either way, he's used to this kind of thing, so there is nothing to worry about. Used to this kind of thing? What does that even mean? He's used to stalkers? Oh well, if his sister says that it's fine, then she's probably right. As I was busy worrying about Nicole, Mary started talking with Alan. Prince Alan, what exactly are you doing here? Is it me or does she sound kind of angry? Oh, I was just resting, I was tired. He replied, seemingly nervous. Indeed, you must be tired. However, I suggest that you go back now. There was a servant looking for you, said Mary, who was smiling but somehow still sounded very forceful. The prince reluctantly agreed and went back to the middle of the party. Mary, Sophia, are you two done with greetings and dancing? I asked the two of my friends who had remained there. Yes, I am quite done. Me too, yes. Perfect. Let's eat together, I proposed. We can share each other's plates. If we did that, we'd all be able to eat a larger variety of dishes. To be honest, I was having trouble choosing what to eat. Of course, they said in unison. The three of us, later joined by Maria, who had to dodge quite a few boys along her way, I had to scare away a couple of flirty guys who were trying to approach her. Had fun eating and chatting together. Jedord, who had told me he would be back soon, was so busy that he barely managed to show his face before he was called for again by the servants. I was relieved that I didn't have to deal with any invitations to do those things that Keith was talking about. Nicole came back safely, although he did look tired. Once the party was almost finished, that man from before, the one that had stared at Nicole while we were dancing, was sneakily taking some used glasses, trying to bring them out of the castle. I pretended not to see anything. So the party came to an end. I did get lost in the hallways, but, other than that, it all went smoothly. As soon as the party ended, we were escorted to the rooms where we would stay the night. They were gorgeous, as expected of the castle's guest rooms. It was finally time for the long-awaited girls' party. I was planning to prepare in my room and then meet with everyone else in Mary's room to chat until morning. I had my maid Anne pretty me up, help me with my bags, and change into my new pajamas, but I was so excited that I finished preparing way before the time we were supposed to meet. But waiting in my room would be too boring, so I should go for a walk inside the castle. And risk getting lost? Better not. If I met Jedord, there was the risk that he'd invite me to do adult stuff with him, and Keith had told me not to walk around alone to begin with. In that case, I'm going to the room next door. The room next door? But young miss, that's... Before Anne could finish voicing her complaints, I had already barged out of the room, knocking on the door of the one next to mine. Who is it? Keith, it's me, your sister. I've come to hang out. I said, entering the room as soon as I heard Keith's reply. As we were siblings, our rooms were close together. Big sister? What's wrong? He asked, surprised by my visit. It was too early to go to Mary's room, so I thought I'd come and show you my new pajamas, I said, taking off the gown that Anne had made me wear to walk in the hallways. I had fallen in love at first sight with these cute pajamas. The light, pastel colors reminded me of spring. Aren't they cute? I asked Keith while spinning around so he could see better. His face turned dark in reply. Do I look weird? Anne thought they were cute too, but what's with that face? Maybe someone with a villainous face like mine looks weird when wearing something cute? No, they're cute all right. Thank you, I said, relieved. That's not the problem. He sighed. As you can see, my maid has gone back to her room. Hey? I guess she has. Indeed, Keith's maid was not there. Which means that it's only the two of us in my room right now. Yes, and I had come without Anne, so obviously there was no one else with us. Keith sighed. You really don't get it. He suddenly grabbed my arm and threw me on the bed. He did it gently enough that it didn't hurt at all, but I was so confused by the situation that I started getting nervous. And then, he stood up by my side, looming over me. Have you forgotten that I declared my love to you? That's right. After the kidnapping thing, Keith did say that. I hadn't forgotten it or anything, but you acted the same as always after that, so I thought that maybe it was a dream. Keith's face looked troubled now. I know that you're not used to this kind of thing, so I tried not to trouble you. That was true, I was so unused to that kind of thing that Jedward's romantic behavior always made me jittery. Thank you, I said, grateful that he'd worry so much about me. But if you're going to write my confession off as a dream, then I won't restrain myself anymore. What? You should realize that I am a man, big sister. How naive can you be? He said, inching closer to my face. I told you to be careful. If you come to a man's room alone, and at night to boot, you can't complain about whatever happens to you. After being told that, I finally realized that this position we were in was bad. I was lying down, with Keith hovering over my face. This is just like those scenes in manga or games. Oh no, what am I going to do? So confused that I was unable to move, I watched Keith's handsome features get closer and closer. His eyes had a fierce passion that I had never seen in them. They scared me a little, so I closed mine. Smack! I heard a cute sound and felt something soft on my forehead. Unsure of what had happened, I slowly opened my eyes and saw Keith, standing away from me, frowning. Keith. I have enough self-control to stop at that, but if it were Jedward, it could have been much worse. Try to remember that you're a woman, I beg you, he said, putting my gown back on me and sending me outside of the room. I stood there, processing what had just happened, and ended up being late to the meeting with the other girls. Lady Katarina! Someone was calling out to me. What's the matter, Mary? I hurriedly replied. Do you not feel well? No, it's just that between the graduation ceremony and the party after that, I'm tired. That was no lie. Between the preparations and the actual parties, I had been busy since morning. However, the main reason why I was spacing out was what had happened with Keith. I was used to being scolded by him, but this was different. And I'd never seen his eyes light up like that. Are you okay? Do you want some sweets? We also have tea and juice, said my kind friends. I thanked them and gratefully accepted their offerings. I had been looking forward to this party for so long, and it could be the last time we all met together like this. I'm going to have as much fun as possible. Oh, this is delicious. Thank you, I feel better already, I said, making my friends smile. Mary, Maria, Sophia, and I were in Mary's guest room, with snacks and tea, ready to talk until the sun went up. As I had always wanted to do a pajama party, I had suggested that we all wear pajamas. Now each girl was wearing sleepwear that reflected their tastes, and they all looked so cute. Indeed, today was so busy that I have little energy left, said Sophia, agreeing to what I had said before. Yes. For me it was even more exhausting, because it was the first time I have attended such a party. Oh, that's right. You've never been to a party except those at the academy, right, Maria? As a commoner, she never had the opportunity to join the nobles' gatherings until now. And to think that her first party would be one so huge. Poor thing. I have not everyone has so kindly taught me about the proper etiquette, but I'm scared that I may have committed a faux pas, she said with a worried expression. Not at all, you were wonderful. You were so perfect that I could hardly believe it was your first party, said Mary. If Mary, who was looked up to as the ideal young noblewoman, said that, then she must have done really well. Even to me, Maria had completely looked the part of a noble girl today. I just didn't have enough confidence to praise her, since Mother and Keith reminded me at every opportunity that I wouldn't know ladylikeliness if it bit me in the face. I am so happy that you would say that. More people than I had expected came to greet me, so I was very busy all the way through. The crowd surrounding you really was incredible. For some inscrutable reason, the other main game characters never became more than friends with Maria. But, as expected of the protagonist, she was always stupidly popular with the boys, and today was no exception. She was cute and a good cook. What more could one want in a girl? If I were a boy, I'd probably ask her out on a date too. But you didn't dance with anyone, right? Asked Mary. What? Really? I asked Maria, surprised. I had been too busy getting lost to see it myself, but it turned out that she really hadn't danced with anyone. I was not confident that I could dance well enough, she said, embarrassed. Unlike us nobles, she hadn't been taking dance lessons since when she was a kid. I'm terrible at dancing, but it's not that big of a deal. I just leave it to the lead and it looks decent enough. Even if I'm daydreaming while doing it, that is. Katarina usually dances with Prince Jedward or Keith, who are extremely good dancers, but she is right in that following the man's lead is usually enough. You also attended the dance lessons at the academy, right, Maria? Yes, but dancing with someone I do not know is still scary, she said as her eyebrows went down in a frown. She had a point. You are right. I wouldn't want to be led in a dance by someone I don't know, either, Mary agreed. But what if it were a gorgeous man? Would it not be wonderful to dance together, said Sophia, with passion in her eyes and too many romance novels in her head. A gorgeous man, repeated Maria, pensively. Now that I thought about it, I had never asked Maria what kind of man she'd be attracted to. What kind of man is your type, Maria? My type, she said. After thinking for a while, she said someone who smiles a lot, is always positive, and enjoys eating the sweets that I bake. I had expected her to say something like I have never thought about it or something, but her reply was surprisingly specific. Oh, is that so? I asked. Me too, I like positive people who always smile. And with brown hair and blue eyes, said Mary, just as specific. Doesn't your fiancé have silver hair? What's the poor prince to do? What about you, Katerina? She asked me. Me? To be honest, until recently, I never had any experience with boys either in this or my previous life. I did like some fictional characters, but no real ones. I've never thought about it in that much detail. What about you, Sophia? I asked, feeling left behind and finding refuge in my friend. Oh, I would love to meet the fallen prince of a former kingdom, who... And so she went off, enjoying her novel-like fantasies and making me feel relieved. Having asked her the question myself, I listened to her ramblings until the end, when the topic became the romance novel she'd gotten into lately. She then took some books out and started talking about them, careful not to spoil any important plot points. Our conversation then went on to the popular sweet shops, antiques, and many other topics, to seemingly no end. Ah, tonight is the most fun I've ever had. What have I done? I sighed, alone in the dark hallway. Well, knowing that it was too late for that, I was now regretting what I had done to my sister Katerina. But isn't it Katerina's fault? If a girl comes alone to a man's room at night and takes off her gown, wearing nothing but her nightdress, am I to blame for falling to the temptation? If anything, I felt like congratulating myself for being able to stop at what I did. Had Georg been in my place, he wouldn't have stopped at appetizers, but eaten all the way to dessert. I just hoped that this wouldn't make Katerina scared of me. I would be sad if she started avoiding me. Not being seen as a man was harsh. But being seen as a man and avoided because of it would also be harsh. I felt like I was asking for too much. For 9 long years I had hidden the feelings I'd had for her since I was 8 years old inside my heart, where they grew stronger and stronger. Recently I had finally found the courage to show them to her, but I didn't know what to do next. Should I act like Georg and approach her without restraint, prepared to be avoided by her if it came to that? But would I even be able to do anything like that? That whole situation in my room had really tested me, so I'd ended up pursuing her actively, but normally, I could never do such a thing. After all, if I were able to, I wouldn't have spent 9 years longing for her in silence. I sighed again, and heard a voice call to me from behind. Hey Keith, you're here too. It was the familiar voice of Prince Alan, followed by Nicole. Despite being approached so suddenly, I was expecting them to come by at some point, so I wasn't particularly surprised. Mary asked me to help her, just to be safe, Alan said almost apologetically. I was asked by Sophia. Everything should be fine if we stay here, said Nicole. Yes, you cannot go anywhere without passing by here. This should be fine. Mary had chosen to stay in that peripheral guest room for this very reason. I looked at the hallway stretching in front of me and saw someone approaching. Is it him? I don't think anyone else would come here at this time of the night. As expected, I saw a head of blonde hair approaching. It was Georg, after all. Oh, Keith, Alan, and Nicole too. What could you all be doing in such a place? He asked, with an obviously fake smile on his lips and a look of contempt in his eyes. As I was thinking about how to respond, Nicole beat me to it. We were arranging a boys' party. What about you, Georg? He said. I was surprised both at the speed of his reply and at the fact that he still hadn't forgotten about the boys' party affair. A boys' party? That sounds quite diverting. Now, if you will, I must pass through. Please step aside, said Georg. The only room in that direction is Mary's, I told him, as if he didn't know that already. That is exactly where I am headed. This scoundrel plans to go directly to Katarina. While I was shocked by how bold and unashamed Jedward could be, Alan intervened. The girls are having a tea party inside Mary's room, and she asked me not to let anyone go there. Alan, you really do whatever she commands, don't you? Wouldn't this be the perfect chance for you to advance your relationship with your fiancé? Said Jedward condescendingly. We like our relationship exactly the way it is, Alan replied offhandedly. Seeing that we were not going to let him pass, Jedward sighed. Oh well, I expected this to happen from the moment Mary said that she wanted to stay in that room. And to think, I had worked so hard to free some time for tonight, he said. You have free time tonight? Nicole asked, suddenly interested. Yes. I prepared so that I would be free to enjoy time with my fiancé tonight. As the former student council president, Jedward had been very busy even after graduation with documents and other bureaucratic tasks, which were probably pushed onto him by Mary. All in all, he's got his troubles to deal with as well, I was thinking before being shocked by Nicole's proposal. If that's the case, let's all do a boys' party. What? What are you saying, Nicole? His expression was as neutral as always, but his eyes were sparkling. Jedward, predictably, also seemed very suspicious. His brother, however, seemed less averse to the idea. Hey? A boys' party, you say? Are you serious? It's a party for boys to chat about a variety of topics until morning, explained Nicole. Sounds fun. Let's do it. He was serious. Very well. Then we shall all go to my room, said a very excited Nicole. And so, all the boys present including me were made to participate. You two guys may seem excited, apart from Nicole's usual lack of expression, but look at Jedward's face, he couldn't be more annoyed. However, completely ignoring how unenthusiastic he was, Jedward together with me was forcibly dragged into Nicole's room. I considered sneaking back to my room, but he sent me a gaze which, while silent, made the prince's thoughts quite clear. If you don't suffer through this with me, you will regret it. I therefore reluctantly elected to follow the others to this boys' party where Nicole, having lost his usual coldness, chatted happily with a similarly exuberant Alan. Meanwhile, Jedward was so glaringly annoyed as to make my stomach hurt just by looking at him. Ah, tonight is the least fun I've ever had. Our girls' party was lots of fun, but after all we had been through that day we were so tired that, one after the other, we got sleepy. I couldn't hold out much longer either. I felt my head getting heavier. I must sleep. The pink walls, the black table, the metal-framed bed with azure duvets and blue cushions, it was a familiar sight. This bedroom belonged to Akan, my friend. Oh, I used to go play at her place all the time in my previous life. This is a sequel to the game she was playing, so I'll have to go tell her once I've finished it. This is Akan's voice. It's been so long since I've heard it. But where is she? I can't see her. But then I looked at the mirror in front of me, and saw Akan looking back at me? But that would mean that I'm Akan. Even if I tried, I couldn't move my body. It was as if my consciousness was trapped inside her body. I then realized that this was a dream of my previous life, and decided to enjoy the nostalgic memories. I saw Akan put a disc in her computer and start playing a game. A game? Now that's nostalgic. I wonder what it is. I looked on excitedly as the opening cutscene started playing. And there was Maria. I could see the character I knew so well in my current life. So she's playing Fortune Lover? It feels so weird to see it as a game after I've lived inside it. Just as I thought that, the game's title appeared on the screen, Fortune Lover 2. Did I just see a 2? What's that supposed to mean? I started panicking as the cutscene still played. Jedward, Alan, Nicole, Raphael, Sora, and 2 other male characters I had never seen before flashed through the screen. This isn't the game I played before dying, is it? Was it so popular that it got a sequel? The title screen popped up, reading once again Fortune Lover 2, this time with a subtitle, Love at the Magical Ministry. I saw Akan click on the continue button, showing that she had already been playing before. And so the game started. Among many familiar faces, a male character I didn't know appeared on the screen. Is he a new character from the sequel? Was the sequel released after I died? Akan was clicking through the text and occasionally choosing dialogue options, and, looking at her, my initial shock eventually faded. The reason for this was that I realized that Katarina could have nothing to do with FL2, having been exiled out of the country at the end of FL1. She couldn't be in the game. There could be no doom for her. All was well. Knowing that, I could enjoy watching my friend play. Now that I thought about it, the first game had received a lot of pre-orders, so maybe it wasn't that surprising that it would get a sequel. Judging from the subtitle, this one was probably about Maria's romantic troubles at her workplace. There was a really grown-up looking character called Cyrus, charmingly mature. And also a younger one called Dewey who looked cute and endearing. Since all the original characters were the same age as the protagonist, they probably added older and younger romanceable options in the sequel. Sora's coming back too. I wonder what role he'll play. I took mental note of the men in the game so that if Maria fell in love with any of them, I could help her along. A new character, a female one, appeared on the screen. Instead of the name, the game just showed 3 question marks, and she had a hood covering her face. Just as I was wondering who this new character was, Akan spoke up. Oh, is it that Villainess again? Her name isn't shown yet, but I'm sure it's Jedward's fiancée from the prequel, Katarina. She what? After all she suffered, she's still here to ruin people's lives in the sequel? Sheesh, she doesn't know when to stop. What do you mean? Suffered? Ruin people's lives? What's happening? I'm sure this time she won't get off with just being exiled. You mean death? No. Have mercy. Don't treat poor Katarina like this. Let Katarina. Stay out of the plot. I shouted while waking up in a room that didn't look like mine. Where? I asked myself, looking around, only to see my friends staring at me in surprise. I finally remembered that I was staying at the castle, and that yesterday we had stayed up late having a girls' party. And then I had that dream. Lady Katarina, are you all right? Asked a worried Sophia, who was standing next to me. Her eyes still looked sleepy, so I figured that I must have woken her up with my scream. It's nothing, I just had a bad dream. Did I wake you up? I'm sorry. No, actually it was time we woke up anyway, so that was good timing, she replied with a smile. You must have been so tired that you had nightmares, Mary added kindly. There are still a few days until we start working at the ministry, so please take your time to rest, said Maria. Right, the ministry. Fortune Lover 2, Love at the Magical Ministry, that's the title of the game from my dream. I reassured myself that it was just a dream. As Mary said, it was probably just brought on by tiredness. I'll just forget about it. After having breakfast with the other girls, we greeted Jedward and Alan and then went back to our respective homes. For some reason, Jedward looked very angry and Keith looked absolutely destroyed. Maybe he hadn't slept well? Or did he have nightmares like me? On the carriage home, he apologized to me all of a sudden. Big sister, about last night, I'm sorry. Last night? Did something happen? More importantly, I had the worst dream. I woke up screaming. I must have been really tired. You know, like, when. I kept talking, but Keith's face now looked even worse. I can't believe she'd forget it in a single night. A dream, that's what it was to her. He muttered. Meanwhile, I kept thinking to myself that my nightly vision was only a nightmare I'd had because I was tired, and nothing more. I had to believe that if I wanted to stay sane. Then again, it had felt so real. Even if it wasn't a dream, the existence of a sequel to Fortune Lover set at the Magical Ministry wasn't a problem. What was a problem was Katarina coming back. And what was an even bigger problem was the possibility of a fate even worse than exile. Please. Stop it. After all my efforts to prevent those catastrophic bad ends, you want to tell me that there are even more? It was just a dream, nothing but a dream. A very realistic one, yes, but nothing more. I must have been tired and anxious about the start of my new job, that's it. Couldn't be anything else. However, in order to keep my cool, I had to chant it to myself over and over. It was just a dream, just a dream, just a dream. Chapter 2, To the Magical Ministry. Telling myself that it had all been a dream had worked so well that I now wondered why I was so scared in the first place. A few days later, it was time to start working at the Magical Ministry. Wearing the uniform with its cloak was enough to make me excited. It was just like the wizards I had seen in the manga and movies of my previous life. After the entrance ceremony, all newcomers would have to go through orientation so that they could settle in at the ministry. I'm an adult now. I'll do my best, I thought to myself on my way there. The ministry itself was located near the academy, so it was familiar to me, but seeing the 50 or so newcomers gathered into the auditorium for the entrance ceremony made it seem so imposing. All the recruits from other branches of the ministry were there, so that could explain why there were so many of us. I was nervous being among all these people, but then I heard two familiar voices. Good morning, Lady Katarina. Good morning, Lady Clays. It was Maria and Sora. The two had met by coincidence while coming here, and they had come to greet me. Despite having worked unofficially at the ministry for a while, they were both going to attend the ceremony with me and all other newcomers. Seeing two faces I knew made me feel relieved. Although I wasn't as close with Sora as I was with Maria, he was also my friend, and we'd traveled together when Keith was kidnapped. Since the ceremony hadn't begun yet anyway, I started chatting with them. When did you two meet up? I ran into some trouble while coming here, and Sora helped me. Then we went the rest of the way together. Yeah, some nasty fellow had laid eyes on her, so I made him get lost. So Sora helped Maria get rid of the man that was troubling her, and then they came to the ministry together. That really sounded like a scripted event in an Otome game. The boy saves the girl, and then they find out that they work at the same place. The blue-haired and blue-eyed Sora was one of the boys that the protagonist could choose to hook up with in the game from my dream, so that would make sense. No. It would make no sense. Because it was just a dream. Not reality. Just an incredibly realistic dream. I should stop thinking so much about it. I shook my head to get all my weird ideas about FL2 out of it. Lady Katarina, is something the matter? Asked Maria, wondering why I did that. Oh, it's nothing, I'm just a bit nervous. Me too. Starting today, I will be an official member of the ministry, she said with an anxious expression on her face. When she looked like this, she really triggered one's protective instinct. I shall protect you from any danger. I wanted to tell her, but, unfortunately, there were only so many dangers that my dirt bump could protect people from. And saying something like that would be even weirder after considering that I was quite anxious myself. Let's do our best, together, I told her, shaking her hand. She blushed and nodded, saying a very cute yes. Only the game's protagonist could be so lovely while doing something so trivial. Even Sora, standing next to us, murmured, "Look at her go, charming people left and right." He's so right. Maria was so cute that she always ended up charming everyone. After all the newcomers gathered into the auditorium, the higher-ups entered, silencing the whole room. I recognized Lorna Smith, Raphael's boss, who had helped us during Keith's disappearance. Around her were other people, probably the heads of the various departments. I looked through each one of them to make sure that the men I had seen in my dream weren't amongst them. Of course it was just a dream, but, just to be safe. I was relieved to find out that, luckily enough, I knew none of their faces. As everyone was now finally there, the ceremony started. Except for the higher-ups, there were no chairs for the people in the auditorium, including the newcomers and the other employees, so we'd have to listen to the speeches and such standing up. Since that's exactly what happened at the entrance and graduation ceremonies at the academy, I had already suspected that it would be like this. Oh well. Everyone was probably used to standing up for so long because of the balls, where you couldn't sit to eat. So we were probably safe from accidents like the one in my previous life where a girl passed out during the school's entrance ceremony because the headmaster's speech was too long. Still, I'd appreciate a short speech. The one at the academy ceremony had been really brief, so maybe this would be too. I don't really like listening to people while standing up. I wish they'd at least let us sit down on the floor. That would probably be difficult too, in this outfit, if only I had my PE uniform. Or at least my farming clothes. I kept myself busy thinking things like that while one speech succeeded the other, until, at last, the single most important person in the country walked up to the podium. From now on, you are all going to become part of the magical ministry, one of, if not the most important organization in the whole kingdom, said the King of Sorcy. As a duke's daughter, I had greeted him a couple of times, but the king still felt like someone that I had little to do with. At the academy it was his advisors giving the speeches, but he had come himself for the magical ministry, the entity that had the most power after him. He looked very young despite having kids more than 20 years old, but he also had the regal presence one would expect of a king. His silver hair and blue eyes were the same as Alan's, but his face looked more like Jedward's. One thing was certain, he was just as handsome as his sons. Thinking that such a chance doesn't come often, I was staring at him intently when our eyes met and he sent me a telling look. Excuse me, what? What does this mean? I was a bit scared, but then I heard another newcomer, standing beside me, saying my eyes just met the king's. To a friend. Oh, that's just like the idol concerts back in my previous life, then. They look around the crowd and everyone thinks that they are staring at them. Whew, I got scared for a second there. After the king spoke, the ceremony ended and the bosses left, relieving most of the tension in the room. Well, it is over then. Now our older colleagues will show us around, I believe, said Maria, who now looked much more relaxed. Will they come to meet us here? Yes, a few of them will come from each department to introduce themselves, said Sora, who had been working at the ministry for a while. Older colleagues introducing themselves. None of the newcomers looked like the new characters I saw in my dream, but I hadn't met the people who already worked here yet. I waited for them to come, secretly anxious. Around a dozen of them walked into the room, but none of their faces looked familiar. I was extremely relieved upon finding out that my dream the other night was, after all, really nothing but a dream. The newcomers were then split up in groups of 7 or 8 and they were shown around the various departments. Being in the same group as Maria and Sora, who were standing next to me, gave me courage. Sora actually knew the ministry well enough already, but he had decided to join the tour anyway to rekindle his enthusiasm as a newcomer. Welcome, everyone. I'm Nix Cornish, and I will be showing you around, said the ministry employee who would be leading our group. His words weren't particularly weird, but he had said them without looking at us and while stroking his hair, which was styled really strangely, with the bangs longer on one side. His clothes, too, were different from everyone else's. They were sparkly and fluttery, and the opening on the chest was very deep. Did he fix it himself? As I stared at him, a woman employee who was nearby said, "Don't worry too much about him. He's just a narcissist and a bit of a weirdo." Now, to be exact, it wasn't the woman employee who said that. It was the raccoon-shaped puppet in her hand. "By the way, my name is Lisa Norman," continued the puppet, while the real Lisa Norman's lips barely moved at all. She was a great ventriloquist. Her expression hadn't changed one bit during the whole thing. Either is she trying to break the ice with us? "Who are you calling a weirdo, Lisa?" "Everyone, this is Lisa Norman, my weirdo colleague who only speaks through puppets," Cornish told us, seeing our confusion. "What do you mean, she only speaks through puppets?" I was baffled. It seemed that she wasn't trying to break the ice with her ventriloquism, but that, for her, it was an everyday thing. This already makes 2 weirdos. Do they allow normal people into the magical ministry? I tried looking at the employees who were showing the other groups around, but there were no custom-fixed uniforms or puppets, and everyone's speech sounded normal. We probably just happened to get the 2 weirdest ones, but that was a relief. I don't think I'd stay sane if everyone was that weird. But, as we newcomers were obviously in no position to complain about older employees being weird, we just went through the ministry tour guided by this strange pair. "This library, the pride of our ministry, is said to be the most comprehensive in the whole kingdom," said Cornish, our narcissistic guide. He wasn't saying anything out of the ordinary, but the fact that he ran his hand through his hair every single time he spoke was really distracting. All the groups being guided through the ministry started from different rooms, so we wouldn't be crowded into the same place at the same time, and ours started at the library. Apparently, it was generally restricted to ministry employees. When we stepped inside, the only thing I could think about was how huge it was. It wasn't only large, but very tall too. Rows of shelves ran up to the towering ceiling, filled with a breathtaking number of books. "Here you will find all the books ever written about magic," said the raccoon puppet, that is, Ms. Norman. She really never spoke without her puppet, and she was extraordinarily good at it, too. Her mouth never seemed to move at all. "Basically, all books are free for you to read. If you want to borrow one, just get permission from the librarian," said Cornish, gesturing toward a girl sitting behind a counter and sending her a wink, making her visibly wince in response. "You can also ask her if you want to know about the location of a particular book, said the Rako, said Ms. Norman, ignoring Cornish's flamboyant gesturing. Looking at the huge shelves covering the walls, I thought that just finding a specific book would indeed be quite the feat. There were more books than I could ever count. Say, Maria, since they have all these books, I quietly said to Maria, who was standing next to me. However, the reply came from Sora, who was standing on the other side. They have none of the romance novels you love so much, he whispered so that only I could hear. How did you know I wanted to ask that? Can you read minds? You're just too predictable, he said with a grin. Am I? Well, if they didn't have any romance novels, this mountain of books didn't really interest me. If only there was a library this big, but only for romance novels. Our two guides went on to explain what kind of book was in which section, but it was all too complex for me to stand a chance at remembering it. Okay. I'll just ask the librarian if I ever need anything. After that, we were shown around the various departments, starting from the one closest to the library, the Biomagic Research Department. Here, we perform research on magic animals and plants, Cornish explained. He then knocked on the door, and loudly called to those inside. Hey, I'm guiding the newcomers, can I come in right now? A series of weird noises came from inside, followed by the voice of a woman. And not right now, wait a second, will you? We heard another round of undecipherable noises, and the woman then opened the door from the inside. Sorry to keep you waiting. Here, please come inside, she said, with her face covered in sweat and her hair all mussed up. What had happened, and what were those noises? Once inside the room, we saw papers scattered all over the place, broken tableware, and general chaos. A group of people, probably the employees belonging to this department, were busy collecting the things that were on the ground and sweeping away all the broken stuff. Was there a storm or something in here? While we newcomers were astounded by the state of affairs, Cornish didn't look the least bit surprised. You never get a break, hey, he said. I really don't. I wish I could do something about it, said the woman from before, sighing. So this mayhem wasn't anything peculiar, but what caused it in the first place? I stared curiously at her and the other employees. I'm really sorry, everyone. We were trying to conduct an experiment and took it out of its cage, but it got out of hand, said the woman, and then a man walked in from a door on the other side of the room. Seeing the man, with long hair kept in a ponytail and big round glasses, the faces of all other employees changed to bitter expressions. Boss, how many times has it been this month alone? Have you no sense of responsibility? The woman said to the man, who was apparently the head of the department. Her voice sounded much sharper than when she had spoken to us. She was obviously mad. However, the target of her anger wasn't fazed at all. Oh, sorry. I got distracted for a second and it all went awry, he said nonchalantly. Wow. How can he stay that cool while getting scolded like that? As it turned out, this man had taken something out of its cage, and that something was the reason the room was now in this state. I couldn't help but wonder what that something was. I looked at him, and our eyes met. He seemed to only then notice that we were there. Who are all those people? He asked the woman. Clearly annoyed at how he didn't feel sorry in the least about what he had done, the woman looked at him sideways while replying. They are the newcomers, and they are visiting our department. Oh, that's right, today was the entrance ceremony. I'd completely forgotten that. That does not surprise me. I tried calling for you, but you would not reply, so I went to the ceremony in your stead, the woman said with a bone-chilling stare. Oh, really? Thank you, the man said before turning to us. So, let me introduce myself. I'm Hector Delius, the head of the Biomagic Research Department. Welcome to the Magical Ministry, everyone, he said with a smile. Knowing that this Hector Delius was the most important person within the department made me feel anxious at the possibility of being sent here. Delius, on the other hand, was the opposite of anxious and looked excited to have visitors. Since you're here, I'll show you the rooms in the back, he said enthusiastically, but the woman from before started to panic. And no, we can't do that. It just got out of its cage and turned the place into a battlefield. What will the newcomers think if they see our department in this state? Don't worry, we put it back in its cage. It's safe now. Okay, everyone, follow me, he said, casually guiding us to a room in the back. We were scared, but in no position to decline, so we followed Delius through the door he had come out of earlier. When I saw what was behind it, I let out a surprised and impressed wow. Much larger than the previous one, which only had a few tables in it, this room had rows of cages and little huts containing all kinds of animals I had never seen before. Unicorns, winged rabbits, half-horse half-fish chimeras, they all looked like creatures out of a fairy tale. I was still amazed at the sight before me when Delius started bragging about it. I know, it's incredible. We've collected these rare species from all over the world, relying on all kinds of methods and connections. Cute, aren't they? Why yes. I wasn't so sure about cute, but they really were incredible. I'd never seen creatures like these. When I was first reborn into this world, at first, I expected to encounter fantastic animals like the ones in front of me now, but I only ever saw dogs, cats, and other normal animals. I was so busy avoiding my catastrophic bad ends that I never bothered to research the local fauna, and I started assuming that it was the same as in my previous life, but I was wrong. And I was deeply moved by this revelation. This is amazing, I said in awe. I know, right, replied Delius with flames in his eyes. I had inadvertently set him off, triggering a series of passionate speeches about his treasured pets. And this one, you see, he went on explaining about another creature that nobody had asked him about, leaving no time to be interrupted. We still have to see the rest of the ministry, and we have limited time if he keeps on with his tirade. We'll be here all night, I thought before the woman stopped him. Mr. Delius, please stop. They have other things to see, she said coldly. Oh, I'm sorry. I got a bit worked up, he said, seemingly snapping out of it before continuing. Okay then, just one more. He produced a potted plant, and started explaining. Lately this has become increasingly rare, and please stop already. You will make the newcomers think that this is the second to least popular department, she said angrily, forcefully dragging Delius out of the room. Second to least popular? So what's the one that people want to go to the least? Our visit to the Biomagic Research Department ended as the department head was removed from our sight. Cornish and Ms. Norman were leading us to our next stop in the tour when we were stopped by an incredibly handsome man. Are you guiding the newcomers? Perfect timing, he asked our guides. He had deep brown hair, and, under his frameless glasses, he had penetrating green eyes that made him look handsome and smart. Yes, we are. Can we help you? Cornish replied. Very much so, replied the handsome man. One of the newcomers was late to the ceremony and I had to go back to get him. But now I'm running behind schedule and have to get back to work. Would you mind guiding him together with your group? Someone was late to the entrance ceremony? That's such a shame. I wonder what happened. And this handsome guy here, where have I seen him? He looks familiar. Why? I was looking at him, trying to figure out who he could be. Maybe noticing my stare, he introduced himself. I wasn't at the entrance ceremony, so this is my first time meeting all of you. I am Cyrus Lanchester, head of the Magic Powers Department. It's a pleasure, he said, pushing his glasses up his nose with a serious expression. It reminded me of something I'd already seen. It was a scene in Fortune Lover 2. A smart-looking handsome guy with brown hair, green eyes, and frameless glasses, with the name Cyrus Lanchester written below him. I had managed to convince myself that it was just a dream and almost forgot all about it, but those memories now resurfaced at once. Is FL2 really happening? I was frozen with shock. I leave him in your care, then, said Cyrus, leading the late newcomer to our group. This boy had orange hair and beautiful blue eyes, making for a very handsome figure himself. He was very short, even shorter than me or Maria. So short, in fact, that we hadn't been able to see him while he was standing behind Cyrus. Essentially, he looked like just a child. I heard Maria's quiet hey of surprise, and I saw everyone else in the group look puzzled as well. They were probably shocked to see that he looked so young. I was shocked too, but not for the same reason as them. I was shocked because I had known that he would be here. I had already seen him, though only through a screen. I am Dewey Percy. I am 13 years old, but I have already graduated school and passed the ministry's exam, said the boy with a hint of impertinence in his voice. Looking exactly like the character I had seen in my dream. No, this can't be true. Did the sequel really start? Was that dream a vision of the future? I thought to myself in horror before hearing the voice of Delius, the head of the department we had just visited. No, wait. Elizabeth, wait right there. I then felt my right shoulder get heavy. What? I looked at my shoulder, and perched there was a monkey that had escaped from a cage in the biomagic lab, with the potted plant that Delius was talking about in its hands. Monkeys now? Can't I get some rest? And isn't this plant supposed to be rare or something? What is even happening? I thought, but my confusion was cleared up soon enough. Elizabeth, it would be really bad if you yanked that out, Delius said, moments before the monkey yanked the plant out of the pot. Eek! I heard the pot above my shoulder scream. But it wasn't the pot, it was the plant inside it. Its root, now out of the soil, had a face on it, and this face looked like Munch's scream. I think I saw one of these in a movie once. What were they called? Madeleines? So is being killed by a magic plant one of the catastrophic bad ends in FL2? I despaired. Oh, sorry, Delius nonchalantly intervened. You'll lose consciousness if they scream directly into your ear, but they're not dangerous. Just lose consciousness? That's not so bad, I guess, was the last thing I thought before passing out. The pink walls, the black table, the metal frame bed with azure duvets and blue cushions, this was Akin's bedroom. Is it that dream again? I'm not making any progress, said Akin, but her voice felt as if it came from my own mouth. My consciousness was inside of her body, just like last time. Once again, all that I could do was look on as she played Fortune Lover 2. Maybe I'll check out the gallery. Tired from not being able to make any progress in the game, Akin opened the gallery, a collection of still images from the best scenes in the game. I used to do the same in my previous life. In my first dream, Akin had just started playing the game. But once she opened the gallery, almost full with pictures, I saw that she had come quite a long way since then. Being stared in the eye by Cyrus Lanchester, hugging Dewey Percy, being sensually pushed against a wall by Sora, they all were exciting pictures like these. Oh, this is wonderful. I wish that were me. I was enjoying the gallery with Akin when What are they doing there? My friends Mary and Sophia, who weren't supposed to be in the magical ministry, appeared in some of the pictures. I could understand seeing Jedward and other love interests from the prequel coming back for FL2, as well as my father and other noblemen who had to go to the ministry for work, becoming possible targets for the heroine to romance. But those two girls had no business at the ministry, so what were they doing in those pictures? Akin reached down to get a drink, and, through her eyes, I saw FL2's manual lying spread out, explaining that Mary and Sophia had come back in the sequel as either rivals or friends. That would explain why they appeared in the ministry. Almost all the characters from the first game are in the sequel, now that I think about it, said Akin, giving voice to what I was thinking myself. Some games change most characters for their sequel, but in Fortune Lover, they just added a couple of new ones while keeping the old roster intact. Is that why Katarina's coming back again? Did they think that it would be unfair to leave only her out? Akin said to herself. I wouldn't have minded being left out. Actually, I wish they had done exactly that. Why did they feel the need to bring me back? Hadn't I been the villainess for long enough in the original game? She really has too much screen time, though. She gives me trouble in pretty much every route. What? In every route? Please, Akin, I need to know more about that. Do the game staff like her that much? If they did, why would they give me all of these catastrophic bad ends? More importantly, I need to know where and when Katarina appears in the story. They gave her a really sad ending, though. Sad? What happens to Katarina? Does she get killed? Please, Akin, just let me know more. I screamed, waking up in an unfamiliar place which wasn't either my home or the school dormitory. Hey? I looked around me and saw my friends looking at me, perplexed. Lady Katarina, are you all right? Asked a nervous Sophia, who was next to me. What is Sophia doing here? Where even am I? Seeing how confused I was, Mary explained it to me. Lady Katarina, you lost consciousness after hearing the scream of the plant that the monkey pulled out of the soil, and you were brought to this infirmary, she said. So this is the magical ministry's infirmary. I now remembered how I'd passed out after that monkey yanked the plant out of its pot. That stupid monkey, but now that I think about it, wasn't it all the department head's fault? I remembered passing out, but why are you here? I asked. Sophia and Mary weren't employed at the ministry. And as I looked around, I found that Jedward, Alan, Keith, and even Nicole were all there. I asked my father to let me help with menial tasks here at the ministry. I think that this will teach me a lot about being an adult, said Sophia. Her father loved her so much that it didn't come as a surprise that he'd let her do whatever she wanted. I also threatened my father into letting me help here, along with Sophia, said Mary. Did I just hear the word threaten? I must have misheard. The two of us are here for similar reasons, said Keith. Nicole nodded and added, we will help with work at the ministry, which will give us valuable experience. My brother and I, as royal family, will be performing research at the ministry in the hope that it benefits our future studies, said Jedward. What he said, agreed Alan. I'd thought that after graduating from the academy, I wouldn't be able to see my friends anymore. However, be it for studying, gaining experience, or whatever else, they all ended up at the ministry with me. That, of course, made me very happy, but it was exactly like the dream I just had. It seemed that Fortune Lover 2 had really begun. What I saw wasn't a dream, but a vision of the real future. Well, not really real, since it's a game, but... I thought about having to become the villainess once again, risking exile if not execution, and that was enough to make me dizzy. I held my head in my hands and gazed down in despair. Everyone got worried about me, and it was decided that I'd be going home for the day. While I was on my way out, I was stopped by the woman employee from the Biomagic Research Department, who had dragged Delius and the monkey, not that I care. But its name was Elizabeth, to apologize to me. This is the first time I've seen the effects of that plant on a human, and they were stronger than I thought. How did it feel? Asked Delius, obviously not very sorry at all for what happened, enraging the woman next to him. Of course, the monkey didn't show any remorse at all. While Delius was busy being scolded by his subordinate, it started eating the bananas that my friends had brought me to eat once I woke up. I looked at this weird scene, suddenly scared about my future at the ministry. After arriving home, accompanied by Keith, I went to my room to rest by myself for a while. I needed to think about the events of that day. That dream turned out to be real, and all of my friends would be working at the ministry. I threw myself on the bed and sighed. FL2 has already started, hasn't it? We met the new characters in a first encounter event. The fact that Maria, who was currently single, could find love at the ministry was a wonderful thing, except for the fact that it entailed Katarina coming back as villainess. Why'd you come back after being exiled? You idiot! Just enjoy your life as a peasant abroad, tending to the fields. I mentally got mad at the game's Katarina, but that just made me sadder. After all this effort to overcome doom, here came new roots and new catastrophes. I have the worst luck. But I've survived all of this. I can't be defeated now. I have to think of something. It's time for a bad end avoidance strategy meeting. Meeting Chairwoman, Katarina Clays. Meeting Representative, Katarina Clays. Meeting Secretary, Katarina Clays. We shall henceforth start the meeting to discuss possible solutions to the new bad ends awaiting Katarina Clays. Does anyone have any suggestions? Yes. Good. Katarina Clays, please go ahead. We could pretend to have a terrible stomachache and refuse to go to the ministry until the end of the game. That's a wonderful plan. But we are not a child anymore. We could never make that work. And we also don't know how long we should wait until the game is over. You have a point. Could we not just avoid all of the love interests? All of them? That's impossible. We don't want to hinder our beloved Maria, do we? So would the bad ends be triggered anyway? I believe so. After all, at the academy we didn't hinder or bully anyone, but the dining hall trial event was triggered anyway. We cannot let our guard down. And this time we don't even know when and how doom will come. Indeed. We don't know which ends lead to death and which, if any, only to exile. We have too little information. We haven't even played the new game. But how can we get more information? We can't buy the game in this world. We have to have that dream again. If we keep watching it and play the game, we'll gather a lot of useful information. That's true. You're right. Then it's decided. We must have that dream again. The order for today is to sleep well. Yes. 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 It was thus decided that I would sleep. I would just have to sleep and have that dream again. Perfect. Sleepy time. Why? I asked myself, with my head in my hands, 2 days after the entrance ceremony at the ministry. Having realized that FL2 was going to take place at my workplace, and that it had new catastrophic bad ends to bring with it, I had planned a new strategy to avoid them. I would just need to sleep well and gather information in my dreams again, but no matter how much I slept, the dream I had in the castle and then in the ministry's infirmary didn't come back to me. I had just wasted a day of vacation by sleeping too much. At least sleeping a lot meant that I felt full of energy and my skin looked shinier than usual, but I had made no progress in avoiding the bad ends. Tomorrow I'll have to go to work at the ministry. What can I do? I bit into a cookie while despairing about my current situation. My friends and the servants had brought me snacks while I rested, probably worried that I was sleeping for so long. They were really delicious. I needed to ask them where they bought. No time for that. What am I going to do now? Was that even a dream? Was it a vision sent to me by a merciful God to save me from danger? I thought that I just needed to sleep, but that had obviously not been enough. Then I thought that maybe the problem was where I was sleeping, so I tried napping in the garden and in the dining room. Not only did that not work, but I also got scolded by Mother. Ugh, what should I do? I thought about it long and hard, but thinking had never been my forte. My brain's getting tired, so I'll take a break. I'll read the romance novel that Sophia lent me during the tea party at the castle the other day. While coming back home, I had even insisted on bringing in the bag I'd put the book in myself, instead of letting my maid do it. However, I had been so shocked by my nightmare that I'd forgotten it at the castle, and in a hallway no less. Thankfully, someone had found it and had given it to one of the castle's servants. They'd held onto it because nobody was able to tell who it belonged to, as it only contained sweets and books. I had actually forgotten about it for a while because of the shock of FL2 and everything. Jedward then happened to look at the bag, realized that it was mine, and brought it back to me. I was so relieved I couldn't have forgiven myself if I'd lost a book lent to me by a friend. Now that I have it back with me, I might as well read it, I thought, and opened it. This looked like an average romance novel involving a man and a woman. Lately Sophia was into more particular genres, such as romance between men, what we used to call BL in my previous world, and her recommendations would sometimes include those. I used to be an otaku, but not a fujoshi. I couldn't say I wasn't interested in boy-on-boy romance at all, but it always felt like a dangerous rabbit hole to fall into. Hey, this novel is so interesting. The hero is nice, and hey? What is this? A folded piece of paper fell out of the book. Was Sophia using it as a bookmark? I took the piece of paper and casually unfolded it, revealing that it wasn't blank, as I had first thought. Fortune Lover 2: A New Tale of Love at the Magical Ministry. The cast of characters from the original game have grown up and returned, standing alongside the new characters. The story: the protagonist, a commoner girl who can use light magic, graduates from the Academy of Magic at the age of 17. She goes on to work at the Magical Ministry, the most important organization in the kingdom. There she will meet strict superiors, weird colleagues, and difficult work, all the while looking for love. The characters: protagonist Maria Campbell, a lowborn girl and one of the few light magic users in the country. A positive, energetic person. New love interests: Cyrus Lanchester, a strict and sober superior. Good at this job, but not so good at speaking to women. a very powerful magic user and ministry executive. Dewey Percy, a child prodigy who graduated from the Academy of Magic early by skipping grades, and is now working at the ministry. He cannot use magic, and instead entered the ministry on account of his knowledge. His family is very poor, and he learned most of what he knows by himself. A hard-working tsundere and a bit of an airhead. Sora, orphan with no surname, came to know Maria through a certain incident and is now staying at the ministry. An orphan with a casual attitude and a dark magic user. The old love interests are back along with the old rival characters, and befriending them or gaining their approval will be vital to progress through the game. The main hurdle in finding success with the new love interests will be fighting a mysterious girl who has come to hinder the protagonist. It is later revealed that this girl is Katarina Claes, who was exiled from the kingdom in the previous game. Katarina holds a grudge against the protagonist for having caused her exile, and she becomes a dark magic user to sneak back into the country and into the ministry, looking for revenge against Maria. In order to obtain the happy end, the protagonist must overcome the threat of Katarina and reveal her identity to the authorities together with the love interests, resulting in the villainess being thrown in jail. Should the protagonist fail, Katarina and Maria will kill each other in a duel, and the love interests will fall prey to dark magic. This is a report on Fortune Lover 2. Why is this inside the book? And how come all routes lead to doom for Katarina once again? Jail with the happy end and a double death duel with the bad end give poor Katarina some rest. Do the developers hate her? If they liked her, they would never have her face all this pain. At least in the prequel, exile was an option. Even now, if I were exiled, I could just get by with my trusty hoe. Why is there no exile in this game? Bring back the exile. Exile forever. But no matter how much I wailed about it, what wasn't in the game just wasn't in the game. If I keep looking back at my past, I'll never go forward to my future. It said so in a manga I once read. I had to calm down and use the information at hand to avoid these new catastrophic bad ends. Meeting Chairwoman, Katarina Claes. Meeting Representative, Katarina Claes. Meeting Secretary, Katarina Claes. With the new information at our disposal, we shall henceforth start another meeting to discuss possible solutions to the bad ends. Oh, come on. More doom. And we can only choose between jail and death. Please, everybody. And Katarina's involved in the storylines of all three new love interests. It's even worse than before. Everybody, let's calm down. And dark magic. Is it about Pokey? It must be about him. This is too scary. Is that why he liked me so much? Was it all because of the game? What am I going to do? I said, calm down. Yes. Yes. There's no point in losing our cool here. Let's get some good ideas out. Got it. Yes. Yes. May I speak? Yes, Katarina Claes, you may. I suggest we research jail, and whether it is possible to escape from it. Should we practice picking locks? Would a year be enough for that? Wouldn't it be better to find a way to get exiled? That could be true. Maybe we should bribe some officials. We must prepare enough snacks for that. Good idea. And what about fighting off the new love interests? This time around we have no clue. We could search for their weaknesses, like snakes are for Jetord. Oh, that's very good. We should spy on them. It seems that we'll be fighting with dark magic or something, so maybe we should teach Poke some tricks? Not just playing fetch and stuff like that, more like growling to scare people off and such. Yes, that sounds good. We should maybe start by teaching him how to sit. Okay, so, to sum it all up, lockpicking for escaping jail. Trying to get exiled. Finding the weaknesses of the new characters. Teaching tricks to Poki. Anything else? I don't think so. Well, we have a lot to work on. We can do it. Having something practical to work towards really gives you hope. Very well. We may get busy with work at the ministry, but let's do our best and overcome doom. Yet. Hence finished the meeting of the Katarinas. It was already late at night. Relieved that I had found some practical solutions to work towards, I fell asleep. I forgot to think about why that note on the game was in Sophia's book, and, despite having slept almost all day long, I fell into a deep and pleasant slumber. Chapter 3, The Test and the Borrowing of Magical Tools. Feeling well rested after a good night's sleep, I started preparing for work at the ministry. I was so glad that I had found a plan to avoid doom. I could finally focus on doing my best as a working adult. I would do my work as I was told, all while looking for the weaknesses of the new love interests and teaching new tricks to Poki. Go, Katarina, go. And thank you, mysterious book note. Everything was explained so clearly. The person who wrote it must have been really smart. Wait a second, who wrote it? The note was in the book I'd borrowed from Sophia, so was it her? Or was it Jedord, who returned the book to me? Or maybe it was the person who found my bag in the hallway. But the game was something from my previous life, and nobody in this world was supposed to know about it. Yesterday I had been so happy about finding the information I was longing for that I hadn't paid any mind to it, but now, I realized just how mysterious it all was. Why was it in the book? Who wrote it? I decided that I would start by asking Sophia, who gave me the book, and Jedord, who returned it to me after I lost it. I put the note back in the book in my bag, the bag on my shoulder, and I made for the magical ministry. At the entrance, a notice posted on the bulletin board read: all newcomers must go to the auditorium where the entrance ceremony was held. Are they going to announce which department each one of us will be going to? We had been guided through a tour of the ministry, but we still didn't know anything about our assignments. If possible, I wanted to avoid the biomagic research department. The work looked hard, and I didn't want to pass out again. But that was supposed to be the second most disliked department. I wondered about the first. If people wanted to go there less than to the biomagic department, it must have been hell. I entered the auditorium and found that most of the newcomers had already gathered in there. I was one of the last ones to enter, so I stood quite far from the podium. I tried looking for Maria and Sora, but they weren't there. As for my other friends, they were supposed to be at the ministry, but they weren't newcomers proper, so maybe they wouldn't be there. Hadn't those two come yet? Or were they all the way in the front? I tried moving towards the podium to look for them, and accidentally bumped into someone. I was looking forward and didn't see them at all. I'm sorry. I apologized. No problem, they replied, turning to face me. I had already seen that boy with orange hair and blue eyes. He was Dewey Percy, one of the new love interests in FL2 that I had met during the tour the other day. Up close, he really was dashingly handsome. All the girls into younger boys must have gone crazy about him while playing the game. However, as soon as our eyes met, his beautiful face suddenly turned into a hateful expression. He looked so peaceful until seeing me. Why is he looking at me as if I were his sworn enemy? I was supposed to antagonize him in the game, but in real life we just met. Why? Why? While I was still shocked, Dewey turned away from me before walking off. What just happened? Had I already angered him somehow, without even realizing it? If he started holding a grudge against me before I could find out his weakness, he would prove a formidable foe in the battle against Doom. I'll have to focus on teaching tricks to Pokey. For example, I could teach him to warn me when an enemy comes close, giving me time to escape. And who could teach me how to pick locks, something that I absolutely needed to learn to get out of jail? Maybe Sora? I had to ask him, and then I could practice in my room at home. If I needed any tools, like a piece of wire or something, I'd just ask Grandpa Tom. Lady Katarina, someone called out to me. Surprised, I turned around and found Maria smiling at me. I also noticed that everyone was starting to walk out. Hey? What happened here? We are in the same test group. I am so glad, said Maria with a lovely smile, but I had no idea what was going on. Test? Same test group? You see, Maria, I actually don't have the best grasp on the situation right now. Would you mind explaining it to me? She looked surprised at first, but then smiled again and kindly agreed, as expected of, my waifu, Maria. As it turned out, one of the higher-ups had said that we would need to take an examination to decide what department we would be sent to. I really didn't hear any of that. Or maybe I just didn't listen. Each newcomer's preferences were accounted for in choosing their department, but apparently, this test was performed every year to test their actual skills and make a final decision. We were divided into test groups and had to complete some simple tasks. The names of those belonging to each group were just posted on a notice board near the front of the auditorium, and Maria and I had ended up in the same one. I felt lucky to be in the same group as my friend despite this huge number of people. I'm glad to be in the same group as you, too. How many other people will there be with us? I asked Maria. Surely it wouldn't just be the two of us. Actually, I was so excited about being together with Lady Katarina that I forgot to check the names of the other members. She said, blushing. She was so cute it was baffling. She was so excited that she just ran back here. I was so happy. Let's go check together then. Yes. We walked together to the front of the auditorium. Near Maria Campbell and Katarina Clays, the notice read Sora Smith. Sora Smith? That would be me, said the blue-eyed handsome boy behind me. I thought that'd be you. So your surname is Smith? I was sure that he was supposed not to have a surname, being an orphan and all. Ms. Larna just gave me a random surname to make sure I wouldn't be asked any annoying questions here at the ministry, he explained casually. Not having a surname would make him stand out, sure, but just using a surname given to him without any second thought was incredible. And Larna randomly giving her own to a subordinate was even more incredible. Not that I cared so much about my own surname, but still. Anyway, since it was me, Maria, and Sora, I smiled happily. We're all already friends in this group. That's a relief, I said. I didn't know what kind of task we'd have to perform, but doing it with my friends would certainly be easier. You are also friends with the fourth member? Sora asked. What? I looked back at the notice, and sure enough, under Maria Campbell, Katarina Clays, and Sora Smith, there was a fourth name. Dewey Percy. That was the name of one of the love interests of FL2, specifically the one that had glared at me just a few minutes ago. Could the fact that we were in the same group mean that this test was a scripted event in the game? Not that I could run away, either way. Each group was instructed on where to wait for further orders, and I made my way there while fighting the fear of incoming doom. Dewey was already there. He didn't give me the hate stare this time, maybe because Maria and Sora were there as well, but he was clearly avoiding looking at me and I could feel the tension in the air. Maria, kind as always, tried to talk to Dewey, who was still keeping his distance, but it didn't go well. This really made me nervous about how things would unfold. We were awkwardly waiting when someone called us from behind. "Are you group number 2? "Yes," we all replied in unison, turning around to look and freezing in shock. The person in front of us was very, very peculiar. Hip-length black hair, beautifully braided with big ribbons. A uniform customized much more than Cornish's, full of ribbons and frills, barely even resembling a uniform at all. Makeup thick enough to rival the garishness of the uniform. Eyes surrounded by glitter and with long, probably fake, eyelashes. Blood-red lipstick. A look like that would have been shock-worthy on anybody, but it was even more shocking to see it on a man. A muscle-bound man with blue beard, at that. I got the feeling that the Cornish and Norman had only been a warm-up to the craziness. I just looked at him, unsure of what I should say. "Hello. I will be watching over your test today. My name is Guy Henderson, but that's not cute enough, so I go by Laura." "Please call me that," she said, throwing her head to one side in a cutesy gesture. She sounded and behaved like the epitome of girliness, but she looked like a middle-aged macho. "And, together with me, oh, he isn't here." "Where did Nathan go?" said Henderson. I couldn't bring myself to call her Laura, before starting to look for someone. Even newcomers from other test groups were staring at her, which was completely understandable. I looked at the examiners for other groups, but I saw no frilly uniforms nor cross-dressing bodybuilders. Did we just get the weird one again? "I'm here. Right here," said a feeble voice coming from somewhere near me, interrupting my thoughts. I hadn't noticed that there was someone so close to me, so I let out a little shout of surprise. "Nathan, you big dummy, always hiding yourself." "Look, you scared one of the newcomers," said Henderson, looking at a man that was her polar opposite. "Since when was he here? I never noticed him." His uniform wasn't customized in any way, and he was wearing it neatly and properly. He was tall and had long bangs and large, thick glasses. That was all I could say about him. He was remarkably unremarkable. I wasn't hiding. "The people around just don't notice me," he said with a frown before introducing himself to us. "I'm Nathan Hart. Together with Guy, I'll be your examiner for today," he said calmly. What a normal person. I was overcome with relief. After seeing all those weird ministry employees, meeting a person this undistinguished, if a bit hard to notice, was very refreshing. He slightly eased the bewilderment I'd felt from meeting Henderson. "However, now we'll give you more details about the test, so follow me to the room that was assigned to your group," he said, and started walking. Wait, where did he go? We lost sight of him a few moments after he moved towards the crowd. We've lost him again, haven't we now?" said Henderson, who by contrast was someone who would be very hard to lose sight of. "He's a good boy, Nathan, but he's really easy to lose track of. And he also always gets lost," she said, putting her hands to her cheeks. I stared at her and her cute gesture, now sure that normal colleagues was not a benefit I would enjoy in this workplace. A girly macho, a disappearing man, and a handsome boy who seemed to hate me for no reason. The path ahead of me was a thorny one. Henderson led us to our destination, and Hart reappeared after a while, winded despite the short distance. I'm sorry. We couldn't find you, so we thought we'd wait for you here, said Henderson. Don't worry, it happens all the time, replied Hart, frowning. I'm sorry myself. He looked like a good though a bit sorrowful person. Okay, now we'll explain today's examination, said Henderson after we were all together. The ministry has a list of easy missions that even you little birds can be expected to complete. We chose one that we thought would be appropriate for you. The 4 of you in group number 2 will have to cooperate to complete this mission, and we will examine your performance, said Hart. I was nervous, but it didn't sound too difficult now that I had heard the details. That was a relief. And now, we'll announce what the mission is, Henderson said as he took out a piece of paper. Some creatures have been appearing around a village and harassing its people. You'll have to take care of that. Oh. It sounds just like a quest from an RPG. If it was enough for the ministry to have to intervene, they couldn't be your everyday creatures. They were probably the kind of animal that was researched in the biomagic department. Could it be unicorns? No, unicorns wouldn't harass villagers. Maybe it's one of those plants, the things the Madeleines. I seriously hope it isn't. I hate them. What if it was a dragon? That would be cool. By the way, what kind of creature is this? I asked Hart, unable to contain my curiosity. Tanuki, he replied. Did I hear that right? Did he really say tanuki? The brown little mammals that eat crops? No, that wouldn't make any sense. This is the magical ministry. What exactly is a tanuki? I asked, thinking that maybe they were different creatures that just happened to be called the same thing as the tanuki back in my world. What? You've never seen a tanuki? They're little brown animals that live in farming villages and ruin their crops, explained Henderson, surprised. That's a tanuki all right. Nothing magical or mysterious about it. Why does the ministry have to deal with them? Couldn't the villagers just set up traps or something? Why does the most powerful organization in the kingdom have to fight tanuki? Excuse me, but why does the ministry have to take care of tanuki? Can the villagers not do it themselves? Said Dewey, taking the words out of my mouth. Thank you. That's a question I'm dying to hear answered. Hart replied with a troubled expression. They tried, but there were so many that they had to ask for our help. He paused for a second and then went on speaking. And also a lot of newcomers have idealized, unrealistic ideas about what the work at the ministry is. We often have to deal with things that are, well, underwhelming. The ministry has a lot of branches and quite a few employees, so it has to perform all kinds of menial tasks. Menial tasks. I wasn't exactly planning to become Ministry Employee of the Year of anything, but after hearing about how powerful of an organization it was, I had higher expectations than menial tasks. Henderson, probably seeing how surprised I looked, tried to explain things further to calm me down. But our mission today is one that we've specifically chosen to be easy. You see, none of you darlings have powerful offensive magic. Indeed, Maria only had light magic, which was a healing power. Sora had fire magic, but it was weak. I had to keep my dark familiar secret because he was a spawn of darkness, and so I could only use my dirt bump, and Dewey didn't even have any magic at all. We all had our unique talents, but offensive magic was not one of them. That made the tanuki thing make a lot more sense. How were the groups decided in the first place? Asked Dewey coldly. Certainly not on the basis of magic ability balance, nor on age. So, What were the criteria? He said before glancing at me. Members for each group were selected completely randomly. Why? Is there a problem? Replied Hart. No, sir, said Dewey, looking like there were, in fact, a ton of problems. For some reason, he looked mad at me. FL2's plot hadn't started yet, so we had barely interacted at all so far. I had to find out the reason behind his hatred for me. Now, let me give you some more details about today's mission, said Hart. He explained that the village was in the country, near one of the peripheral branches of the ministry. Given its location, that branch had to deal with a lot more trivial matters than the main branch in the capital. They would normally be able to solve the problem themselves, but they had their hands full with other tasks, and so they'd asked for the HQ to help. The HQ, thinking that it would be a perfect test for the newcomers, accepted. I knew that starting out with a difficult mission would be problematic, but at the same time, I still felt disappointed. The task itself is not particularly challenging, but the location is rather far. If we left today, we probably would not arrive before night. We will leave tomorrow early in the morning, and we may have to stay there for a few nights, so make sure to be prepared, said Hart. Oh, so it wasn't near enough that we could just go, get rid of a couple of tanuki, and come back. Staying the night someplace far away sounded fun, though. After the explanation, Henderson stood up and smiled. Since none of you have strong offensive magic at your disposal, the higher-ups will lend you magical tools. Let's go to the Magical Tool Laboratory's warehouse. Magical tools. Now that's cool. And they would be helpful to compensate for our lack of offensive magic, even if we were up against tanuki. Hart and Henderson then guided us to the warehouse where the magical tools were stored. The first thing that jumped into my mind when I heard the term magical tools was the kind of things I'd read about in the books of my previous life. Magic wands, cloaks that make you invisible, watches that let you travel through time. My excitement, however, vanished as soon as we entered the warehouse. What is this junk? Before us was a collection of weird items, large and small, amassed randomly and covered in dust. Rather than a warehouse, it looked like a dump. All the others seemed as surprised as me while they looked at the magical tools in front of them. Again, Henderson sensed our shock and intervened. We build a lot of tools at the ministry, but not all prototypes turn out successfully, and a lot of them are stored here. But some of them do work. Doesn't that mean that most of them don't work? She just made the warehouse look even worse. Could you show us some of the tools as an example? Asked Maria tentatively, and Henderson picked up a small tool lying close to her. This allows you to communicate over long distances. It's still a prototype, but the results so far aren't half bad, she said proudly. That sounded like a telephone. A marvelous tool indeed. That sounds wonderful. Can it be used from anywhere? Asked Maria, excited by the magic telephone. Well, not quite. You must be outside, and you must be standing on a place high up enough, explained Henderson, visibly frustrated by the question. High up? How high, exactly? Asked Dewey, interested in spite of Henderson's disappointed expression. The roof of a 3-story building, I'd say. Since we're going to the country, that could be hard. There were some tall buildings here in the capital, but not many outside of it. The magic telephone suddenly didn't seem as useful. Then it would probably be useless for this mission. What other tools are there? Asked Dewey relentlessly. He looked like a cute little boy, but inside he was very cold. This is always cold, so it's perfect on hot days, said Henderson, giving Maria something that looked like a stone around as big as her palm. Oh, it's true. It really feels cold, said Maria. It's only spring now, and it doesn't look like this would help on our mission, said Dewey, colder than any stone. He had a point, it wasn't summer, and it probably wouldn't help against our, Tanuki, foes. Still not discouraged, Henderson went on to show us the stone that is always warm, the handkerchief that always has a light, pleasant scent. The hand fan that cools you a lot just by waving it a little bit, the bag where you can store food smells to retrieve them later, and more. They all were interesting tools in their own right, but none of them looked particularly useful for our mission. We have lots of things here, mountains of them. But most of them are still prototypes, so we can't use them, said Henderson, as if trying to defend herself. Oh well, she said, now apparently fed up, just take whatever you like. If you're lucky, it'll come in handy during the mission. Way to give us all the responsibility. It was then that I realized that Hart wasn't there. Actually, I realized that I didn't know whether he had even made it here with us. Did he get lost again while coming here? He was so easy to forget about that it was scary. And now, with no advice from either Hart or Henderson to rely on, we all started silently rummaging through the junk. Just looking at the tools wasn't enough to tell what their function was. I found something that looked like a broom. I wonder what this does. Excuse me, Ms. Henderson, what kind of tool is this? Oh, just call me Laura. That's an auto-cleaning broom. So it really is just a broom. But auto-cleaning sounds really useful. Yes, well, unfortunately it cannot recognize dirt, so it just sweeps left and right, and it usually just makes a bigger mess than before. Can you even call it auto-cleaning then? I kept showing Henderson tools and asking her what they were for, but none of them turned out to be particularly useful. They were interesting, yes, but I wouldn't bring them with me on a mission. Dewey had already lost interest in searching and was sitting in a corner, reading a book. That boy had no regard for authority. If the tools were smaller then I could at least bring a couple of them with me, but most of them were impractically big. I must find something small and possibly useful. Oh? What's that? I saw something shiny on top of a pile of other tools. Could it be a magical girl's wand? If I have to get something useless, it might as well be something useless but cool looking. I got closer to inspect it, and it was a handheld mirror. No, wait, a magnifying glass? The small instrument, which, to be honest, wasn't very cool looking, was a magnifying glass like the ones I had used as a child in my previous life, without even a decorative handle or anything. However, looking through it didn't make things appear bigger. Yet another tool I had no idea what to use for. Ms. Laura, what is this one for? Oh? Let me see, my dear. Maybe because I called her Laura, Henderson replied with a huge smile. It wouldn't be easy, but I decided to just call her Laura from then on. Laura took the tool and looked at it, puzzled. The boss was researching this personally, so I'm not so sure, but I think this thingy was supposed to glow in the dark. So it's a flashlight? I thought I had finally found something useful, but Laura said that it was barely enough to see right in front of where you held it. Again, useless. I kept showing and asking, but I only found more useless stuff. I thought that not borrowing anything would be rude, though, so I took the magnifying glass that, barely, lit up in the bag where you could store food fragrances to, barely, smell them later. Maybe I would find myself hungry and in the dark at some point. Maria and Sora also borrowed some tools, but Dewey's so ungrateful. Did not. We then went back home to prepare for the next morning, when we would meet at the ministry to make for the village together. So, Laura, what do you think of the newcomers? My superior asked me. They have all searched through the warehouse and picked out some tools to take. Dewey Percy just said that he didn't need any though, I told her. Ha ha ha. I know he looks cute, but inside he's quite a cold boy, she replied. My superior, Lorna Smith, was the head of the magical tool department. I don't want to sound like Dewey, but I think that anyone would have trouble choosing tools from that pile of old prototypes. Why did you not give them proper tools? I asked her. Our department had another warehouse where we stored actually useful, complete tools, but Lorna instructed us to guide the newcomers to the old warehouse, which only contained prototypes and failed experiments. I trusted my boss to be cunning enough to have some plan in mind, but I was afraid that the newcomers would think less of our department. However, her reply was unexpected. I wouldn't want newbies to go and break our good tools. And they'll also test our prototypes for us in the meantime. I see. I had thought too deeply about it. And, by the way, there's more than meets the eye in the old warehouse, Lorna said with a telling expression. Some of those tools may be very useful in the hands of the right person. The right person? I repeated, dubious that there was anything more than junk, I mean prototypes, in that warehouse. Yes. For example, what did Maria Campbell choose? She chose I think it was the ring that increases magic powers, I said, and Lorna's eyes lit up as she smiled. Oh ho ho, she chose that? Even better than planned. But if I remember correctly, that ring barely had any power at all. It was basically just a lucky charm. Which is why we keep it stored with all that other junk in the first place. Surely Lorna was aware of this. For normal people, or rather, for normal magic powers, it's just a pretty accessory. But for some of them, it will probably prove incredibly powerful. We just stored it with all the prototypes because the magic powers it would react to were so rare that we never managed to test it. By magic powers, do you mean? Yes. Light magic. Her words made a shiver run down my spine. Maria had unknowingly chosen the one item that would be useful to her out of all that useless junk. As expected of Maria Campbell, a girl chosen by destiny. This is so interesting. I really hope that she'll come to our department. As a beautiful girl who, despite her low-born origins, wielded light magic, many thought of her as a chosen girl, and what happened today made me think that there could be some truth to that. She seemed to have something unique inside her. But I don't think such a talented girl would come to our department, I said. After all, we were just the magical tool department. Maria excelled in both magic and academics, so it was unlikely that she would want to join us. And what did Sora and Katarina choose? Asked Lorna, who seemingly had not even heard my pessimistic remark. She was a really good boss, but if I had to say anything negative about her, it was that once something caught her interest, she couldn't think about anything else. She never changes. Sora took the staff that keeps magic fire burning for a little bit, and Katarina the bag that stores food smells. Wahaha. Really? Sora's fine, but Katarina's choice is just too funny, she replied, laughing uncontrollably. Well, I had to contain my laughter too when I saw what Katarina had chosen. One of my colleagues had actually built that when he was so overworked that he couldn't think straight anymore. Of course, having no real application, the bag was just thrown into the old warehouse. And to think that Katarina would go and choose that, looking so satisfied about her choice I was impressed that I had managed not to laugh. Ms. Clays seems nothing like the rumors make her out to be, I said, making Lorna grin. By rumors, do you mean that she's a spoiled kid who just got into the ministry through her connections? Yes. Many people say that that is the case. But after meeting her today, I am not so sure. Oh? How did she seem to you? She didn't seem spoiled or entitled, and she didn't even look like a duke's daughter at all. She was really peculiar, I said honestly, prompting another one of Lorna's bouts of laughter. Katarina Clays, daughter of Duke Clays and fiancée of Prince Jetord. Hearing that a person such as her would come to work at the ministry had surprised everyone. We all had our theories, but eventually we started believing that she just came here to mess around and kill time until her marriage, which obviously left us thinking of her in a bad light. I cannot say that I thought highly of her, either, but after meeting her, I realized that the rumors didn't hold true at all. She was nothing like any other young noblewoman I'd met so far, and her weirdness had me laughing right from the start. I was actually looking forward to going on a mission with her. The smell bag was so funny that I'd almost forgotten, but she had taken another tool with her. Now that I think about it, Katarina also took that other tool, the one that looks like a mirror and lights up. Upon hearing this, Lorna, who had been laughing all this time, suddenly turned serious. You mean the one I built recently? Yes, that one, I replied, slightly taken aback by her reaction. I was wondering where that went, so it was in that warehouse. And Katarina took it. Her expression now started worrying me, so I asked her, does it do anything other than just light up? Well, for most people, no. Apparently, just as the ring that Maria took, it only showed its true power to certain people who used it. Should I take it back from her? If she's just taking it with her, it shouldn't be dangerous. She thought about it for a while and then kept talking. I have a bad feeling about that tool being chosen by Katarina. This mission may take longer than we originally expected. Should anything happen, contact me immediately. Got it? She told me gravely. Yes, ma'am, I said with a nod. If the rumors weren't true, then there had to be another explanation as to why Katarina was here at the ministry. Something troubling enough to turn someone as carefree as Lorna serious. I thought that the examination would be extremely simple, and that there was absolutely no risk of anything dangerous happening, but it now seemed like I'd have to reconsider that. I'll just work out before sleeping to put myself in the right mindset. And, by the way, where's Nathan? Asked Lorna. Lost, as usual, I replied. Nathan Hart, the colleague that would be performing the examination alongside me, was an incredibly talented and diligent man, but he was so inconspicuous that you'd forget about him as soon as he was out of sight, and he always ended up getting lost. I know that the examiners are chosen at random, but I wonder if it isn't dangerous to have Nathan on an outdoor mission. Maybe you should strap him onto a leash or something. I know. Knowing that the mission I had to share with Nathan could turn out to be dangerous, I started to feel anxious about it. I was excited at the thought that, tomorrow, I would be on my first mission, examination for the ministry. And since we would have to stay the night, I had to prepare properly. Clothing was easy, as I just needed my pajamas and uniform, but what else would I need? Snacks for the trip to and from and the mission location, snacks to eat after lunch, snacks in case I got hungry at night. If I had all that, I figured I'd be fine. Oh, and the magic tools I borrowed, too. I'm going to ace that mission, I shouted while standing on top of my bed. Please stop doing that, young miss. It is not befitting, said Anne, who was in the room with me and shooting me a cold stare. Will she be all right by herself? I must ask Lady Maria to take care of her tomorrow. She murmured to herself, sounding like a mother worried about her child's first school trip. But I was an adult now. Usually Anne helped me pack up for trips, doing, arguably, most of the work for me, but this time I prepared myself. However, now she asked to take a look at my luggage. What are these snacks for? To eat during the trip there. And what are these snacks for? To eat after lunch. And these ones? To eat at night if I get hungry. There are too many snacks. You do not need so many, she said, removing more than half of my provisions from my luggage. Oh, my poor snacks. There does not seem to be any comb or mirror in here. I figured I wouldn't need them. Young miss, you are an adult now. A lady. You are expected to take care of your appearance. Your mother has told you that time and again, has she not? Okay, I'll bring them. Going through my luggage, Anne took out and put in things as she saw fit, ending up doing, once again, most of the work for me. Even after I tried to do it all myself. After we were done with my bags, the sun had already set. I was worried that I'd be so nervous about the next day's trip that I'd spend the night awake, but, maybe because I was so tired after my day at the ministry. I fell asleep the second I lay on the bed. Anne woke me up the next morning, and thus began the day of my first mission.